Jones, and I'm here to tell you folks, the world has fallen. The fascist globalist overlords, oh, they're implementing the Great Reset. You don't believe me? I've seen the tapes. Watch it, folks. Watch as these pot-bellied Zoomer goblins work with the Illuminati to pit us against each other. I promise I'd be a good boy.
Ugh, I'm a good boy.
There's only one cure, folks, and that's liberty. And there's no better channel to find freedom than Fabian Liberty. Anarchy is order. Government is civil war.
You're offensive. Police lives matter?
We're just trying to do school.
What?
You guys have the same sticker as the other.
But this is our space. You're making the space uncomfortable. But you're white.
You're fucking a white male!
What is one way you combat racism? I don't root for white people on the sidewalk.
They want your wallets, they want your guns, they want the wieners off your sons. Democrats.
Oh, we should film
So let's say, for the sake of argument, that all of the water levels around the world rise by let's say 5 feet. You think that people aren't going to just sell their homes and move?
Just one small problem. Sell their houses to who, Ben? Fucking Aquaman! Vaccine!
Children, they're spreading COVID throughout the population at higher numbers. And people are not entitled to turn themselves into deadly biological weapons by spraying disease-laden aerosols wherever they choose, randomly killing innocent people. This is not freedom, this is homicide, and willful ignorance is no excuse.
What the fuck?
Highest margin of victory yet. It's really impressive. Though, I'm starting to think he might have had help from the Russians.
Look at me, I'm a gay frog. I'm so cool, I'm so neat. I'll never have children and I'm sterilized. But the media says I'm totally cool. I'm a gay frog, I'm a gay fish. It's so good, and I think my daddy atrazine.
It's an old intro. I lost the interim intro that I had made. I had one that I made, that one's like from like 3 years ago. I gotta make a new intro. I just don't know what I want to put in it yet. Still getting set up, boys. Put Israel, dude. Israel's gonna have to go. Like I was just about to say, like you distracted me, so it was dope. What I meant to fucking start the show with was, who's ready to go send their sons to die in another one of Israel's wars, boys? Fucking Trump out here talking about fucking about turning fucking Gaza into Mar-a-Lago 2.0. What the fuck is happening? Dude, what is Trump smoking right now, boys? I mean, like, I know the dude was always a fucking Israel show. I mean, like most conservatives are. But, like, Jesus fucking Christ, man. That's like the most like American foreign policy thing, like neocon shit ever, is like, these people won't behave, so America's gonna step in. We got your back, Israel. Like, what? That is fucking Israel's problem. And it's Palestine's problem. Why the fuck do I have anything to do with it? What the fuck, dude? I don't want a single one of my fucking dollars going to fucking brown people dying in the fucking Middle East. Like, I don't care who kills them. I'm sorry. Look, here's my God's honest, like, emotional opinion. From like a libertarian perspective, right? Like, it's my position is very simple. Like, no foreign aid. Let private citizens deal with things. If the state is going to be involved, it should be towards contract negotiation for like return of property, based upon documentation. We should have a court system in the West Bank. And like, we should, revoke the Nakba. And if people can't, if Israel can prove terrorism, then they don't deserve their property. If they fucking can't, then if people have deeds of their property, it's their fucking property. Okay. Libertarian position out of the fucking way. From an emotional perspective, I don't care that a bunch of cousin fuckers that want to marry 9-year-old girls and bomb each other is at war with a bunch of fucking socialist Jews that are so obsessed with the fucking Holy Land that they can't move to a productive country, and that they desire and deeply want their own fucking homeland in the middle of a bunch of barbarians. I don't want any of my fucking money going to bombing any of these fucking people. I don't want any of my fucking fellow friends, citizens, etc. being involved in this in any way, shape, or form. Like, can we just wash our fucking hands of this? It's so fucking crazy. Oh, shut the fuck up, you fed. Like, this whole, like, I mean, this happened, like, what, like 20 minutes, like an hour ago or something? I don't fucking know. I was taking a nap. I was taking a fucking nap. And then I woke up and fucking checked Twitter, and Trump's like, we're going to turn it. Maybe we'll have a few resorts. And I'm just like, what the fuck is happening? Why is Trump doing this? Want to wash my hands in the blood of infidels? Reminds me of, like, the French national anthem. Where it like sings about like watering our fields with the furrows of our fields will be watered by the blood of our enemies. Wasn't Slope banned on Discord? Yeah, because he kept fucking leaving and coming back to avoid getting glowy tagged, and then afterwards to avoid the debate bro shit. Because he would not stop fucking Jewsbergen in general. Because, look, there are rules on my server about, like, moving things to the appropriate channel, especially when a mod tells you to. I don't want people that randomly join my Discord from a fucking, from a video to just, like, see someone be like, and the Jews caused 9/11. And then they're like, oh, okay, I made a mistake by joining this. I mean, like, one or two comments is one thing. When it's like a back and forth, it's like constantly about the Jews. It just doesn't help my Discord when people come in, see that shit, and go, oh, never mind. I didn't know that this is what was happening on a Discord. Especially like older people that have like never really been on a Discord. Manifesting is popular today. We are just giving Manifest Destiny a chance because it sounds like an OnlyFans creators channel. There's a joke in there. I'm sure if I read it correctly, the joke would be funny, but I'm not getting this. So is this new podcast, will it be debatey? I don't know. I don't think so. But we'll see. I think it's going to be more of like a discussion-based thing. We're going to see. We'll see how it works out. Like, I haven't committed to doing it every week just because Tuesday is like one of my, one of the days I have a lot of shit going on. But, like I said, we'll see. I don't think I've ever heard this song on the fucking Pretzel Rocks. I gotta comb this beard better. The normiest glowy I've seen. I mean, he's not really a normie. He's just... He kind of is. I don't know. I don't know that I would call him a normie. Wouldn't go that low. Trump need to get back Afghanistan. Then we can get Gaza. Like, no, dude. Afghanistan offers us nothing. Like, I don't need the poppy fields. Let me see if I can find the full fucking context of the Gaza thing. Let me see what's going on. All right, so this is 12 minutes ago from AP. Because, like, this is, like, mostly breaking news. Ah, that's not what I wanted to do. There we go. All right. All right, let me see. I just want the fucking video. Where's the video? There's got to be like a longer version of the video, like a longer clip.
The U.S. will take over.
Sovereign Wealth Fund, don't forget that, Scott. Okay. Where's the full video? Like, I want...
I also strongly believe...
All right, here's the 2-minute clip that I'm talking about for anybody that missed it. Because it only happened like, you know, like an hour and a half ago. All right, so this is the full video. This is the wildest shit I've ever heard. Like, I woke up from a nap and was like, what the fuck, bro? Hold on, let me cut my background music off.
I also strongly believe that the Gaza Strip, which has been a symbol of death and destruction for so many decades and so bad for the people anywhere near it, and especially those who live there, and frankly, who's been really very unlucky. It's been very unlucky. It's been an unlucky place for a long time.
It's been very unlucky. What the fuck? Like, he just like... Trump does this weird thing where he stalls for time with like kindergarten speak, and it bothers the fuck out of me. Where it's very unlucky, very unlucky. It makes him seem so low IQ. But it's like a weird pandering thing. It's like a quirk. It's not that he's like retarded. It's just like a quirk that he has where like if he wants to stall for time, he just says like, you know, like he just gives like he just repeats some adjective. Very unlucky, very unlucky. We have the greatest doctors. The greatest doctors, they say. Like he does it for emphasis. And it's like, dude's reading a script. Yeah, but it's like he's stalling, or like he loses his place reading or something, and then just fucking repeats whatever it was that he was saying to like catch up because, I don't know, because he reads at a fucking middle school level or something. But like the dude's clearly not dumb. It's just very weird, this habit that he has of doing that. It's very off-putting.
It's been very unlucky. It's been an unlucky place for a long time. Being in its presence just has not been good, and it should not go through a process of rebuilding.
I'm sorry. There's no way that like he's halfway riffing it even when he's reading. There's no way a speechwriter was like, and then we wrote down, it's not been very good. Like a speechwriter just didn't read that. Like write that. I'm pretty sure he like gets angry at his speechwriters, and like at this point they just give him bullet points, and then he reads bullet points and then riffs it in between bullet points. Like I want to see what Trump's notes look like, but if I had to guess, that's what's going on. Or Trump wrote it. You know what? That might be Trump might have wrote that.
Been good, and it should not go through a process of rebuilding and occupation by the same people that have really stood there and fought for it and lived there and died there and lived a miserable existence there. Instead, we should go to other countries of interest with humanitarian hearts, and there are many of them that want to do this.
What countries? Like Egypt won't take them. Jordan won't take them, right? Like Egypt doesn't want to take them because Egypt doesn't want to deal with them, and because they enjoy that it fucks over Israel, and that it causes problems because Egyptians don't give a fuck about the Palestinian people. The Jordans don't want to take them because the last time they took in fucking PLO, they tried to assassinate their fucking monarchy and had to get kicked out until they started a civil war in Lebanon. Like fucking, so of course they don't want the Palestinians.
And there are many of them that want to do this and build various domains that will ultimately be occupied by the 1.8 million Palestinians living in Gaza, ending the death and destruction and, frankly, bad luck. This can be paid for by neighboring countries of great wealth. It could be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 12. It could be numerous sites, or it could be one large site. But the people will be able to live in comfort and peace, and we'll make sure something really spectacular is done. They're going to have peace. They're not going to be shot at and killed and destroyed like this civilization of wonderful people has had.
Okay, yeah, but like, as much as I like don't fuck with Palestinians, because I really don't. I don't like them. Like you're just giving control over to Israel. Like at this point, you're just giving them Israel's gonna have every level of fucking control over this. Like it's not gonna be like an American fucking territory. It's going to be it's just going to be an expansion of the Israeli state and give control over to the Israelis whilst are they going to get it? Like, are we getting a 2-state? Like, what are we getting? Like, what is this plan? This plan is just send in troops and fix it. It's like Trump is just like fucking like the horny bonk meme. We're just going to bonk them on the heads and like, we're going to magically fix this shit.
And killed and destroyed like this civilization of wonderful people has had to endure. The only reason the Palestinians want to go back.
Anson, they had bad luck like the native population had bad luck under Andrew Jackson. It was like, we're going to make them walk a beautiful trail of tears. It'll be the most spectacular trail of tears. Have you heard of the Cherokee roses? The flowers that they spread all across America, beautiful flowers that they spread from northern Georgia, and they spread those flowers all across the U.S., those beautiful flowers that they spread every time one of their children and one of their women and children and men died. They'd plant one of these flowers, and it'd be beautiful flowers, spectacular flowers.
And destroyed like this civilization of wonderful people has had to endure. The only reason the Palestinians want to go back to Gaza is they have no alternative. It's right now a demo.
Dude, some people, I know this is going to be crazy to Trump because, like, he has a lot of immigrant family and he's rich and he has a bunch of different homes, right? But to, like, normal people, like some of us are born and raised in an area. We have a kinship with the land. We have an ancestral tie to the land. We have a feeling that, like, this is the land that has been cultivated and or ruined, but nevertheless has been a historic part of our ancestry and our family. There is a value to your hometown, to your home nation, right? Even Bakunin understood this as a critique of Marxism, when he said that the love of the fatherland is genuine. I'm paraphrasing, but that the love of the nation state is not a true expression of that love, right? That like the concept of like loving America isn't the same thing as loving the American state. But the idea that people want to live in Gaza solely because they have nowhere else to go, like there are certainly those people. Those people exist. But there are definitely people that want to live there because that's their ancestral fucking homeland. 20 acres and a camel.
Gaza is they have no alternative. It's right now a demolition site. This is just a demolition site. Virtually every building is.
Brother, you are mere feet away from the architect of said demolition site. Like, don't get me wrong. October 7th was fucking horrible. Don't get me wrong. There are terrorists that have done horrible things, right? Like, don't get me wrong. The people did, coercively vote for those terrorists to keep them in power, right? Like, don't get me wrong. Hamas is fucking evil, but the buildings are being blown up by someone, and he's right there. Like, he's like, you could just do a little sidestep and be like, this is the guy that is doing the bombing.
Virtually every building is down. They're living under fallen concrete that's very dangerous and very precarious. They instead can occupy all of a beautiful area with homes and safety, and they can live out their lives in peace and harmony instead of having to go back and do it again. The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip, and we will do a job with it, too. We'll own it and be responsible for dismantling all of the dangerous unexploded bombs and other weapons on the site, level the site and get rid of the destroyed buildings, level it out, create an economic development that will supply unlimited numbers of jobs and housing.
What do you mean unlimited numbers of jobs and housing? Where is this money coming from? Is this what we're doing? Is this what USAID is all about? Did we fucking dismantle USAID so that we can fund it all into Palestine? Did fucking Elon Musk hop on a private jet with Bibi and he was like, look, we gotta, like, legally, constitutionally, we have to do something with this $42.8 billion that is being used by USAID. So we're gonna stop all the programs, and then we're gonna put all USAID into Palestine. Like, what in the fuck? If I was this is just crazy.
For the people of the area, do a real job, do something different. Just can't go back. If you go back, it's going to end up the same way it has for 100 years.
Oh, all right. Let me pull up OBS. And then bring this up. Turn this into this. Whoopsie. My chroma key is always off when I switch. I feel like that got worse. There we go. Oh, no, that's a little too high. Whatever, close enough. Test. Why is my... Yeah, let's cut this off. I don't need that shit. All right. Everyone stare at my waifu. Stare at my AI crafted waifu. All right. Apparently there's people in a waiting room from a show before, but whatever.
Okay. So these guys are just pull toys chasing red meat. In fact, it looks like staffing issues caused the accident. Get this.
Let me make sure this is working. Oh shit! Hold on, I go back up. There we go. There we go. Now I'm just waiting to get pulled in, and then we will get this show on the road. I think we're going to talk about this Gaza situation for just a second. Dude, will you Slope is up. You're so fucking tiring. Will you just can you find something interesting to talk about other than just constantly bitching about the Jews and making up shit about it? and like being like, it's the Jews in the Discord server. There's nobody in the Discord server celebrating this. Like you just make up shit constantly to try. Like stop. Like please, dude. It's just so fucking annoying. It literally every time you talk about politics, it's literally just you constantly just talk about the Jews. Like we could be talking about critical race theory, and you're like, did you know that Jews were involved? Did you know that fucking, we're talking about feminism? Did you know Friedan is a Jew? Jews, it's a Jew conspiracy. Oh, taxes? Guess who the bankers are? It's the Jews. No, it's not true. You're just a fucking retard. Like it's like you get so like it's just you're a one-trick pony and you're fucking it's tiresome. Like at a certain point, like it's just like I'm just like, dude, should I just get rid of him? Because like this is all he's gonna do every time, no matter what we're talking about. He's gonna do everything he can to try and distract the conversation, like a fucking Fed, like a glowy about the Jews. I don't know whom you're offending. Offense isn't even really that big of a deal to me. And just like I don't care if you offend a large group of people. Like you're annoying me. It's like that's all it is. Yo, he said he was gonna pull me in. All right, why am I sitting here? Been chilling, homie. I guess I'll cut my camera on since while we're waiting.
I got to tell you, they gave me a fucking headache. Let me get to smoke this bowl. Jesus Christ. I like those guys, but whoo, my head hurts.
What happened?
Bro, I was trying to have like an opinion in there. Oh God, bro. I had a real fun panel right before this, and I have a throbbing deep vein thrombosis going on right now.
Yeah.
Do you guys know who Radsivnat is?
No idea.
The name is super familiar. I just can't tie it to. But explain it. I don't.
I'm
know.
gonna send you something.
I just don't know who he is. He asked me to come on Friday to his show. I don't think I know him.
I've heard the name before. I can't tie it to anything.
I mean, the name describes everything, right? But
yeah, baby, I'm gonna send you something here, and you're gonna laugh.
I just don't know what's like radical about it. I always thought civic nationalism was kind of a moderate position. So for him to add rad to it is interesting.
I guess I said a Lenscrafters thing, but whatever.
Is that that's like a famous e-girl or something, right?
Yeah, buddy. It's like the Twitch.
Oh
e-girl
yeah.
now.
Weren't you guys like you and Prime and some other people on her channel a while back?
We did. It's a really fun clip. If you never get a chance, you should definitely go watch her political royale. Prime is on there. Wick's on there.
Prime shot a shot. On that one.
Prime started off strong, beat 2 4-star generals from her chat.
He was going on a roll. Yeah.
Yeah, he won like 4 or 5 in a row. And then you got the first official appearance of Admiral Gibbs. So I got to debate Lactoid as the final boss of the show.
All right,
and
right.
I was the lefty, and then at the end when I won, I revealed that I made moves of him. It's really good shit.
Nice.
It's probably my best comedic work so far, and it's definitely Lactoid's best comedic work. Now I don't know about his best debate.
I don't know where the fuck people find the time to like be a streamer and also pay attention to what other streamers are doing.
Yeah, I'll send this to you, Pay. But if you just want to see the ending, the best part's 5 minutes.
I guess if you're in the life, you kind of have to.
Yeah, you got to do the network.
Yeah,
really.
I mean,
That's the big thing.
I catch up on like clips on Twitter or something, but like people are like, you didn't catch that whole Destiny stream, and I'm like, fucking no. Like, what do you mean? Like, it was like obviously not. I haven't watched. I was like, yeah, if a clip comes out or something, like I'll see the clip and like maybe if it's like super relevant or something, I'll dig into it a little bit more.
I agree. I don't watch anybody live hardly. It's always somebody says something, so I go find a clip, and that's that. I mean, streamers to have too much content.
You don't have your camera on, right?
Yeah, he's working on it.
Sorry. Yeah, I'm trying.
Sorry, we're sorry. I'm taking a
just
moment.
forgot.
I need like 2 minutes here before we get started. After that,
I'm gonna IKEA
wild
up.
bullshit.
This
Y'all
is a
can.
new location.
I'm sorry, chat. Y'all, I'm gonna be boring for 2 minutes. I gotta mentally recover. I'm gonna hit this bull.
What
and
happened?
Squeeze this cat. And then bro. I had to end the stream mid because someone using the N bomb. And then I tried, and then I was like, bro, whatever. And he lives here in the same town, so he's like, it's because I'm from this part of town, which I've been smashing a chick from that side of town, so I understand. But still, whatever. He got mad, and anyway, can't be doing that. But whatever. And then I guess him and Pit Temple just did not like each other, and it was real rough. And I was supposed to be like a participant and not a moderator, so like. And then I ended up. It was very stressful. It was good content, but my head hurts. Go ahead, Icon.
Yeah, your streams can be a little bit risky because you've got people who aren't normally on Twitch, so like they don't understand. Like
this guy's a
that whole
YouTuber.
culture. Like you've got a lot of normies.
If he's a
sometimes,
YouTuber,
and-
then he fucking knew better.
Yeah, he knew better. He just
Yeah.
was like really raging.
Right.
Yeah, and so like we got like
Yeah,
listen,
but you've got like a lot of the e-girls you bring on are really just girls who touch grass, and so they don't.
well, the
really-
e-girls, most of the e-girls stream.
Yeah,
yeah, they might
like,
be
how do you think-
streaming because
you can't be an
they don't
e-girl
behave
and
like
like
they
not
know.
be online. Then you're just a girl.
Yeah, and
With,
I
like,
mean, and then
e-girl
what I
makeup.
do.
Yeah, but you've got a lot of girls who are like that, right? Like basically the only time they're online is when
Yeah,
they come
but
over
like,
gameplay.
but like,
Oh no!
but
Well, some of
they're
them
fucking
sure, but not-
posers. You know?
Well,
Like, they're
those are
not-
hold on. So you're talking about two different things. So sometimes, yes, I will get girls like Abby, for example, where she's like she watches streams and she doesn't go on them, but she's like a high-level business executive for a major diamond company, and I thought that she was probably as economically savvy as Econo Boy. Cool. Now she's already public relations trained. I'm not worried about like her, right? There is a group of girls that are like just like hot chicks, but we usually when I bring those on, those are like in person. Like people, because like I know
Right.
them, and like
That's what I mean, yeah.
and those people I don't ever really worry about because it's not going to get like heated enough, and if it's going to get like hoochie mama enough, then I'm going to go to Kick because that's good money for over there. So like, yeah, but whatever, I'm not worried. But where I do have problems is when you get two fucking, for lack of a better term, people that don't like each other. Everybody thinks Gibbs is going to be where everything's going to be fine to throw at each other. And for the most part, that's true. But then they're like, oh, then they get actually their feelings hurt. And then they fucking go off on a tangent that gets me banned. And we're not having none of that.
Right.
Also, y'all
Go
are
hit your
politics. I'm ready. I'm ready now. I hit it. I hit it one more time.
Oh, I wasn't paying attention.
Yeah, let's go. Let's do this. So, hey, welcome to Lenscrafters. We might workshop this name. Not sold on it. But where we push things through a lens. We're going to talk and do a little theory crafting today. Talk about what is a leftist. Icowrich takes issue with my definition of leftist. And Fabian, he's here because he's always got opinions. So it's going to be perfect. And then we have, afterwards, we're going to do opposite day where we take stances that people wouldn't expect us to take. Not devil's advocate. It'd be something like, for example, easy one for me. Reparations would be one I'm for that people are very shocked by. But we don't have to go into the reason because that's not the one we're talking about today. We're going to be talking about positions. Y'all will have to wait till that segment to see what positions we're pushing forward. So you wanted to start with theory first, Fabian, or do you want to start with the opposite?
Either way is fine. I'm excited to do this because, well, I did the DCS championship with you, and I love the way that you formatted things.
Yeah, we're gonna definitely
and I
do
do
that.
like these. I do like these kind of like less people involved conversations. One, 2 to 3 people is a much better place for this. And and so I think this should be fun. And so I'm ready to. I've been given permission, all right, by Gibbs to come back into the Twitch space as opposed to just being on YouTube. And be a nerd, right? Like to be the nerd that I want to be, so I don't have to scream because that's what I like to do. So yeah, we'll see how this works out. Normally I don't stream on Tuesdays, but if I like this, which I think I am gonna like this, it might be like a late night Tuesday stream thing for me regularly. So, but normally I stream a little earlier. If you guys want to check me out, Fabian Liberty on YouTube, and I'm usually streaming Monday, Wednesday, Friday with the occasional like Sunday fun day or something.
I will post the link in chat here shortly. Ical, go ahead. Tell us who you are.
Yeah, I mean, I concur with a lot of that. I mean, I'm a nerd too. I think maybe, at least when it comes to like super deep theory knowledge, Scott out nerds me. But I have other priorities too, and one of them is I like to I think maybe everybody knows this about me by now, is I like to establish common ground to the degree that I can, so that we can better understand each other, so that when we do get around to the stuff that we disagree on, we at least sort of understand where we're coming from and can compare ideas. And I think this, the strength of an argument isn't in changing other people's mind only. I think it's also about allowing your own mind to be changed, like, so to be open to something that maybe you've even dismissed for years. When that happens, it's extremely rare, but when it happens, it sort of, reminds me of the power of debate. And I don't consider debate to be polemics. I consider debate to be distinct from that. Debate to me is something that should allow you to get to a common ground. So when people say, "Oh, I want a discussion, not a debate," maybe this is just semantics, but what I'm saying is I want a debate, not polemics. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's two things I would add to that, right? Number one, if you want to, I think probably the greatest example of this in history that's like on video that you can like watch, right? Obviously, I'm sure there were great discussions and debates before the video camera was invented, but like if you want to watch this, watch Mr. Rogers in the Senate hearings for discussing whether or not PBS funding should be cut.
I play that. Yeah. I play that in class once a year.
Yeah. But I mean, it is a perfect example of like balanced rhetoric, and especially like incredibly good use of energeia, right? Which is like, I know, but for the audience, like telling a story and making someone feel like they're a part of the story, right? By like, like when he recites the poem or the song on his show about like, what do you do when you get mad or when you get angry? It's a great example of that. And then secondly, in psychology, they have this kind of like, they have this field of research within marriage and family counseling, right? About the difference between, couples that argue and couples that fight, right? And, they showcase that if you as a couple, if you don't argue, your marriage is essentially doomed to failure. Like couples that like put things off to the side and don't hash things out, their marriage fails, right? But there's a difference between fighting and name calling and things like that and arguing where you get to that position. And I do think it's something we need more of as a society. But I'll shut the fuck up now.
Yeah, I mean, basically I agree with all that. It's good. I will just, one little quick thing I want to add, then we'll just jump into the topic.
I'll have one thing too.
Well, okay, go ahead and say your one thing real quick.
Oh, just quick. I think one of the things that I always see, as long as we're saying good things about each other right now.
I hate you both.
One thing that Scott does, which I don't know, maybe you like this, maybe you don't, Gibbs, but Scott's a master of the Ciceronian digression, which is to say it's something that Cicero was really good at. He would take a topic and then he would move on to something else, which seemed like it was unrelated. But then by the end, you understand like what it has to do with the point.
Well, I will add to that. So
I get mad when people interrupt my rants. Okay, they're not rants. I'm coming full circle.
Right. So it's funny you say that because two things. God damn it. The first one, remember what you just Cicero thing.
Ciceronian digression.
When I asked you in a second,
it's pronounced Kikaro. Okay.
Yeah, I don't give a shit. Listen. So like one, I was gonna say one. Actually, let's do the Cicero thing first. When I'm sitting here looking at it, that's how I would like to argue on these panels. If I could do what Scott in some ways is better than me in regards to this. He is much more able for whatever reason to like guarantee that he gets his time and he's going to talk, even no matter what. Now, when I say something, I'll say one sentence. And I already have 10 people objecting, and they won't even let me finish. And I'm like, man, if y'all just waited for sentence 2 and 3, y'all would have some real shit to object to. But no, y'all won't let me get there. So I got to give him credit for that. You definitely are very good at doing that. So if I could do this, it's called what is it? Tell me.
You know why it works that way? You know why you get interrupted? Is you start off spicy, and that's your biggest problem.
Well,
what
yeah,
because
what
you do is it's just like he's saying, you establish common ground. Notice when I go on long rants and I don't get interrupted, the first thing I always say is like, hey, listen, I hear you on this. I understand what you mean by this position. And then I steel man my opposition and I make them recognize that they're heard in what it is. And then they're way more likely to give me grace as I start to build my argument. And I don't start saying the spicy shit or like the offensive, like to their argument or insulting them until I'm already at like sentence 4 or 5. But now they're invested in the argument.
Sure. I think that's maybe some of it. I do like to start off spicy. I mean, I've done the common ground thing. I also have done, I've had to adjust my tactics quite a bit for Twitch poll.
Carl Rogers.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm not disagreeing with you.
I've got
there's
Carl
a reason
Rogers on
why.
the shelf.
There's a reason why I start the way I do, and part of it is the content.
be right back.
WWE villain. I'm willing to be everybody's favorite Twitch bad guy, but as long as my people hear the point, because my people like it, right? Like I'm trying to stay on, and I do try to build common ground. And I think they works better these small shows. Also, most of the shows we're on like together are like the bigger, spicier ones. It's usually the 8 people panels, right? Like in this kind of combo where it's like 2v2 or 4 people, anything less than 5, I definitely don't start off as spicy. Usually I'm much more, because I know there's like a certain amount, but it's like 8 people. So I guess should we wait for him? I want to segue to the other thing. But yeah, so I would do this,
and he doesn't even have headless phones.
Yeah, I was going to say though, I would love to do the Cicero style here that y'all were just talking about, but it's just never worked out for me. Although in real life, that is how I debate. Like if I'm at the bar, I'm like, now check this out. I know this doesn't seem related, and I'll go on my little thing and then bring it back home to what I was trying to say. It's like a big circle, but it's not a style that's worked for me online, and I developed a different one I think I like. So whatever, fuck it. Fuck these putos if they can't take some
part
insults.
of the reason that style has worked for me, right, is that in a lot
it's
of
because you're also like just gonna keep talking, and I'm gonna like eventually be like, eh.
Well, no,
because I want to laugh at them.
I mean, like, sure, you're gonna have to have. I mean, that's just a confidence thing. I don't think you lack that. But like,
I'm just gonna laugh at them. Is what I'm gonna do.
Well, part of it is kind of the reason why I'm here, right? Which is that like. A lot of times people are somewhat invested in what I have to say to a certain degree because they have no idea what to fucking expect from me because they haven't really been exposed to like deep ANCAP ideas. And so like that, I kind of get in a way I get attacked by everybody because I'm against everybody in a lot of panels. But in a way, I often get grace because people don't know what the fuck I'm going to say. And so, like, they kind of set themselves up for traps because, like, I can guess what a lefty or what, like, a righty, most of the people, I can kind of guess what their arguments are from, like, the first couple of words in their sentence. But, like, for my ideas, a lot of times people can't do that because they're just, it's not like my ideas are, superior, which they are. But it's more just, like, familiarity.
I found the ultimate defense against that strategy, though.
What's that?
It's just not know what you're going to say before you say it, and trust that it's going to work out. Like
Trump's speeches. It's just a stream of consciousness. We're getting there together, boys.
Yeah, listen, I know where I want to go. Yeah, I know where I want to go, right? But I don't always have the map, planned out ahead of time. And that it's really hard to argue against. Fucking the Joker, because whatever the fuck, what I'm saying? How do you argue against chaos? Icowrich, you're killing me here,
dude. Right? Like he's like having a conversation.
I was like so ready. I was
with
so
an
ready.
Open mic.
All right,
there we go. Let them old man knees get back into the seat.
Yeah. So
there we go.
Carl Rogers doesn't work.
Cool. Yeah. So you missed all that, but whatever. Bullshit.
Were you looking for your Carl Rogers?
Yeah.
Oh my God. So here. So as a segue. From
Hey, listen. Like for 5 shows in a row, I showed you my little porcelain cup that I got from ANCAP, and not once did you laugh at my joke. Not once.
I know.
I don't remember that. I'm not gonna lie. I feel that.
ANCAP is a famous like sort of porcelain firing company. I'm a coffee nerd, so I got it's like 6.5 ounces. It's perfect for cappuccino, but you can tell if it's an ANCAP because at the bottom it'll have it. It's a French company.
I like coffee a lot, and I wouldn't have known that shit.
I'll show it to you next stream.
Well, there's a difference between liking coffee and being a coffee nerd. Like, you ever got onto like YouTube Shorts or TikTok and seen like the people being like,
I've done the deep dive.
I bought this new $600 device that aerates it slightly better.
I have a couple of those videos myself.
Yeah. I'd be going
I've made a few. Yeah.
So anyway, back to the thing. So yeah, perfect segue. I also think the reason why we're glad we're doing this show is because I like think knowing where people's boundaries are. Like, even if you can't come to like an agreement on something, you can at least be like, well, where can we find common ground somewhere else?
Right.
Kind of thing. So going into that, my definition of leftist, and this is what you kind of wanted to object to or talk about today, is basically anybody left of center, right? Because that's what it is, and that's at any time in history. So you might be a leftist or whatever at that time period, but whatever. So anyway, leftist or whatever. And now I don't feel like if you're on the right, it's important to differentiate between all the different groups. Now, I will admit there are other factions. So it's leftist, big tree, and then there's liberals and leftists and all these other different names that they want to call especially just like on the right, there's that, right? However, I, as a person on the right, don't find it necessary to disagree because anybody left to center is definitely going to be against 99.9% of what I want, right? And it's more important for me to fight amongst my righties about the specifics. Now, that's kind of how I look at things. Now,
sure.
Thoughts?
Well, I think when you do that, you end up doing to the right what you intend to do to the left, which is now you're lumping yourself in with people who, the further right you go, like Elon has been fighting with these people, right? Like he started tweeting that
that's why I caveated.
Yeah, that MAGA needs to weed itself of all these racists, right? Who didn't like his H-1B stance and stuff. So, like, yeah, you have to make those distinctions on the right as well, mainly because there are times when you have to, like, forge an agreement with the other side. You know, Ronald Reagan was very famous. What is it he said? An 80% ally is not a 20% traitor. Like, he wanted to make deals in that regard. So I think, I think there's about 7 or 8 gradients the last time I looked in terms of what separates a Marxist from a neoliberal. And I, in fact, the Marxists hate neoliberals way more than they hate conservatives. Like that's where the big division is, I think, is whether or not you accept capitalism as a legitimate like economic system that should continue to exist in the world. That's where the big division is. And there are people on the left who are on the what you would consider the right side of that line. I would say mainstream liberals as well.
Yeah, maybe if you want to give thoughts, then yeah.
Yeah, so I'm of two minds on the concept of like leftism or what the left is, right? So, and this kind of breaks down into 3 points that I kind of want to make. So the first point is, Gibbs, at its face, I agree with you, right? What leftism is anything that is considered on the left culturally, right? Historically, it is, like leftism would have been anti-monarchy. We've discussed this a lot when we were talking about the socialism Hitler, Nazi, or whether or not Nazis were socialist kind of debate, right? And so, the left is in that regard, defined by what is culturally speaking more liberal, more tied to certain philosophical axioms, and that position shifts. But once we recognize that the left is tied to certain philosophical axioms in some regard, what it is that drives it to the left, I think we get to a better understanding of what leftism is in that regard. So what I would say is that the right tends to be, and Marx was probably right about this, is reactionary, right? The right has these set of values, but these values are always negotiable. And so it's much less philosophical axioms so much as it is values, cultural values that the right attempts to maintain. And this is why we see historically and through modernization that the right constantly just kind of shifts to the left. And it's exactly why I think you describe you're more concerned with gatekeeping the right from going too far in that regard, right? And it's also kind of it's also why Burkean conservatism makes sense, right? Like you can't really have a Burkean leftism or Burkean progressivism, right? Like, because Burkean progressivism would be Burkean conservatism. It is, look, we want to
it's how the left and right interact. Yeah.
Right. Like we want to make progress, but we want to make sure that we don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, and we want to go slowly, and we want to ensure that like whatever cultural traditions and institutions we have remain strong, And it's imperative as a society that we recognize that sometimes it can take an entire generation before we recognize the outcome of an institution, let's say like the church going away, right? The church can go away in one generation and it's not really a big deal, but that's because there's an entire generation of people that were raised by people that went to the church. It's when you have people that were raised by people that never went to church that all of a sudden we start to really feel the cultural kind of like impact of that. So what axioms I would propose undergird both historically and in any kind of like at any time period, leftism, like what are these concepts that the right negotiates with and comes closer and closer to, but are the concepts that anchor the left to this place? I would posit that they are collectivism over individualism. Right, and so this would begin with Hegelian dialectics, the giving a moral status that is higher to the collective over the individual, right? The society, right? Like you could also obviously look at it from Marxism and class struggle and the proletariat, etc. But you could also look at it from the utilitarian perspective, right? That an individual is value, or what they do is not as valuable. Like it's okay to sacrifice one for the needs of the many. So I would say that one axiom is that collectivism is better than individualism. Second is altruism over moral duty, right? Like you see this on the right with like Christianity. You see this with, certain traditional, religious values. You see this with Kant. You see this with, all the way back to Plato, right? Like every time, this one might be controversial because the right also embodies this concept of self-sacrifice over one's own rational self-interest. But this would be my kind of libertarian hot take on that. The next one I think is pretty obvious: equality of outcome, right? Or equity, or disparate outcomes, etc. Right? That it is evidence of some wrong or social ill that some group of people do not attain what other group of people attain, or that they, and even I would even go so far as to add to this, though I think this is probably more housed in the right, equality of opportunity. I think the concept of equality is a myth that is grounded in leftism. And then the last of the four, which is subjectivity of truth, right? I think that it is that the left has this concept that contradictions can exist, or that like individuals have their spoken truth, and it is right-wing philosophy that posits that there is an objective truth, there is an objective morality, that there's like a universal kind of thing. And you're going to see this, in the postmodernist movement. You're going to see this you're going to see this in a lot of left-wing spaces. Now, there may be some that I'm missing, but I think those are kind of the big ones that are the axioms that push towards the left. And I think the right is more reactionary in that regard, and that they react to those axioms, and that they move along with society. They try and gatekeep and slow down society from that philosophy. And then there's a very small cohort of actual right-wing philosophy that isn't that, right? Like objectivism would be one example. Ortho bros, right? Be another. There's a few philosophies that say, no, we stick our fucking pole in the sand. We don't cross this fucking line, period. Like this is what it is that we value, etc. That would kind of be my argument.
So when I say this, I'm gonna respond to you, Icowrich, real quick. But I agree with a lot of what Fabian said. However, as nuanced as that is, I'm gonna be honest. Sometimes I like to Occam razors that shit. We're gonna just simple it down. Sometimes real simple, real good, right? And that's how I'm kind of thinking on this one, right? So the reason why I caveated it when I was opening up with this, on the right, I definitely recognize there are lots of different groups, right? Like Fabian and I have very different, like right-wing ideas about not like, for example, I'll tell you the one I believe might makes right. He's like, what is it? Non-aggression principle, right? That's a big thing. Now I find it much more valuable.
We disagree, but I wouldn't say that wasn't right-wing though.
No, I know you wouldn't. Right, that's not what I'm saying.
Oh, okay.
Right. So what I'm saying is, to me, I find it much more differential to differentiate between the right wing people, right? Because those are the ones that I need to find the common ground of and figure out who I can work with and how, right? Like, I don't want to work with, say, I don't know, some like right wing South will rise again types, right, to get shit done. So I find that much more useful who I can palate. Now, on the left side, right, it doesn't matter to me. Now, I know they have the same kinds of little divisions and factions. To me, I don't find it useful, and it drives leftists insane online in this space when I basically just lump them all together. Liberals, leftists, socialists, communists, whatever. Doesn't matter, because most of what they believe in and want to accomplish, anything past a certain left of center, is basically abhorrent to me, right? And they're not going to like what I want. So it doesn't matter to me to differentiate, because everything I want, they're going to balk at, right? So whenever they happen to have something they do agree with me on, cool. That's just gravy. I don't think that it's even necessary as a conservative commentator to even like get into the nitty gritty or play this game, because you'll go on panels and these people will just argue about, well, I'm actually a liberal, Papa. I'm not a left. Or I'm just. It just. I don't think it's helpful. And I mean, why would I even want to do that? I mean, I count.
Well, because I think there's a risk there, right? Because if you're going to lump them all together and say they're all the same, and then you reached agreement with somebody, because maybe you found somebody who was a mainstream liberal or even a neocon who like agrees with you on some of your military stuff, then your logic would say that, okay, you agree with the left now. The left agrees with you now. And in fact, there's a ton of disagreement with you. It's just that you found a strain, a political strain that agrees with you when it comes to capitalism, right? But they might not agree with you on other things. Like, and I think you've got to acknowledge those. Otherwise, you end up not just painting
not all
putting all of them
capitalism
in the
is the
same
same,
brush.
though. But not all capitalism is the same. That's
I
why
agree.
that's why that can't be the dividing line, in my opinion, right? Because like
It's a dividing
there's some
line.
forms of capitalism are real bad. Like I don't want those.
So this is why I said collectivism over individualism, right? Like this is why it's an axiom, because I don't think capitalism is the dividing line. I think capitalism is a natural follow through of individual liberty, right? Like when you say that an individual can own property, that an individual can trade with other individuals, etc., right? But when you put the will of the collective above that of the individual and say that some individual success or merit can be sacrificed for the good of the collective, is when you is the axiom that grounds anti-capitalist philosophy, right? Is that it's not right that one individual rises because of whatever reasons above everybody else when all of these other people are poor. So I would say that the anti-capitalist kind of bent is less so important, because it's a consequence of valuing the collective over the individual as an axiom, and that you see some level of distribution of this, right? Because the far left that's super anti-capitalist is very pro-collective over the individual. But like the neoliberal Democrats on the left are like, look, we need welfare, we need wealth redistribution, we need some, regulations that like work out for the common individual, right? Like there's a gradient of to what degree they value the collective over the individual in that regard.
Yeah, Elizabeth Warren says that she wants to save capitalism, and one of the reasons she wants to save capitalism from itself is the way that she puts it, and it's because she knows that the welfare state that she supports needs something to tax, and if capitalism falls apart, welfare falls apart. We talked about this
the
a
Nordic
little bit.
model. Right, like
Yeah,
the Nordic model, massive wealth redistribution with low regulation, and
which, by the way,
Trump
maybe we'll get around to this, but Trump just said that he wants a sovereign wealth fund, which really shocked me to hear. So it sounds like there are elements of the Nordic model. This again, maybe this is horseshoe theory, but there are elements to the right who want to do this.
I hate to interrupt you. I'm sorry, but let's just real quick on that. And so this is what I like. All right, I just want to critique my own side here. Like, I know people try to pigeonhole me as MAGA, but it's something I'm not. I'm not right. MAGA. Like I'm like adjacent, right? However, people are like, oh, I can't believe he did this on the right, and I'm like, bro, he's a New York Republican. That's a Democrat. Like he's a '90s Democrat. Like, so whenever he does something like this, It also looks like a populist move. I just I'm just annoyed that they're like, oh, I can't believe this is happening. Like,
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to see that he looked at Alaska, for instance. A lot of conservatives in Alaska, but they have the closest thing to a sovereign wealth fund right now.
There's also like
and they love
200K people in Alaska, you know.
Yeah. I understand. Yeah, and there's a lot of
to be
oil
fair,
there.
to be fair, America has always had agencies that have wealth funds, right? Like, for example, like, you know, I talk about this fairly often, like the CIA has In-Q-Tel, right? Like, so, you know, we've always recognized, you know, obviously not I, but like we've always recognized that certain agencies, especially those that do covert things, have a vested interest in having their ability to utilize investments as a form of power in other regions, right? Which is why we let the State Department and that, and so we have an incestuous relationship with NGOs and wealth and, you know, investment firms and things of that nature that are kind of like arms of the state. So I don't actually think the sovereign wealth fund is as big of a step as people think it is, but it is a very symbolically a very like, what, you know, like if you're a right wing capitalist kind of like, what are you doing with my taxes kind of guy.
What doesn't Chile have some private investment like tied into their like retirement system there? Like
I don't remember. I mean,
privately managed individual account based pension system. I thought that was interesting. That came from the right, not from the left.
I'm a little like I'm pretty interested in see how this sovereign wealth fund comes out, right? Like, I on its face, I'm pretty concerned. Like, let's just be honest. Like,
Do you remember when Obama like bought a bunch of like auto companies like after the 2008 crash, and there was conservatives at the time were very concerned that he was going to keep them and make it like a significant revenue source of the federal government, in which case the federal government would then like own swaths of the private sector. Now, he didn't do that. He ended up
they already do that though.
Returning
with, like,
the ownership.
Post office, right? Like in the post office.
Well, that's in the Constitution.
Post office is in the Constitution.
It's not private.
Sure. I get that. Hold on.
Amtrak.
Well, no. There's a reason why
Congress
I picked that. It is because
owns,
they're
like,
in the
a bunch of
Constitution.
Amtrak stock.
See, don't be predictive. The reason I picked it is because it is in the Constitution. Just because listen. So that's establishes constitutionally right now. That's the precedent that even like Amtrak can all like look back to of them being able to do anything in the, you know, private sector in the first place. I don't know. Like, I don't know on its face if I would be able to object to the automakers thing. That's another thing. Like, I'm gonna give credit. Crash for Clunkers seems to have worked out as a good program. I don't like 99% of Obama's things.
No,
but it works.
Cash
we
for
can
Clunkers
debate.
is one of the big. No, I'm not letting that go. That
Sure,
was one of the biggest failures in the Obama presidency.
Well, once again, it depends on where the money lies. But anyway, so I feel like I can see things once again that go on. Like on its surface, I'm very concerned about the sovereign wealth fund. Like as you said, as a tax-paying American, right? However, the difference between me and David, because I'm not an ANCAP and I do like some really small government. If
you're neocon, you're comfortable with
well, I would like small. I would like it to be a little bit different structure. If there was a way they could sell this to where I would guaranteed come out on top. Like, then I could see it, but like, I don't trust the government to do that because bureaucracies seem to be woefully inefficient compared to the free market. And so, I think this is one way or another, it's going to come back to bite me in the ass.
So this is where I think, I mentioned this last night when we were on Prime's panel, right? And I think it's really important that we start to view this. A lot of Trump's decisions only start to make sense once you recognize that he is trying to like start the American empire. And he's trying to divest from like the global empire.
I agree with that.
Right. And I think the sovereign wealth fund is an investment arm of the state. And what an investment arm of the state is able to do, you know, and this is descriptively speaking, because obviously I'm not for this as
right.
an ANCAP.
Of course, yeah.
But what it is it is a counter to institutions like the World Economic Forum. Right. It is a counter to globalist or like billionaire investors that are like tied with each other and like, you know, working together towards like UN Sustainable Developmental Goals 2025, you know, things of that nature. Is that, you know, when you look at like, you're not going to be able to defeat diversity, equity, inclusion initiatives, right? Just by saying, let's ban DEI, because they just rename it, right? But what Sovereign Wealth Fund does is it allows the state to get involved in investment firms, and it gets to essentially utilize taxpayers and funds to pick winners and losers in investment capital markets, right? So when BlackRock and ARK and oh God, what's the other big huge investment firm? I can't think of their fucking name now. It doesn't matter, right? When they disagree, right? And one goes hardcore on like ESG and the other one doesn't, and then the president makes executive orders that say that we're not involved in DEI. Well, guess what? The Sovereign Wealth Fund has to divest from an investment firm that's pushing something like DEI and move into their competitor, which gives them more capital to work with, which gives them more. You see, you kind of see what I'm saying? So you can actually push market things in a way against what a lot of global initiatives are doing. And as much as I dislike it, I feel like you might be for that. The problem is once you set that up, what happens when you have a Democrat in office and they do the exact opposite? Now all of a sudden they start utilizing our taxpaying dollars along with these initiatives.
Right. No. I absolutely agree that you brought the American Empire thing, right? Like, I think you brought that up yesterday. I absolutely agree. That is the thought process behind this. I'm honestly, you're right. I am pretty pro. That's why I'm saying there could be a way to sell this to me, right? Like I'm open to it. On its surface, on its my face, I have severe concerns, and a lot of those stem back to, like what you said, it's not necessarily my guys doing the bad thing. It's what'll happen if somebody else gets in power, and like that could be a lot way worse than not having it all. I also agree that is the American Empire thing, especially after today's news with the Gazans that have now been informed. Holy shit! God damn, bro, Trump is doing everything I've been wanting to do. Just like he is letting America's dick hang low. The American Empire is here, bro. We are
could we
about to be
space out the Sovereign Wealth Fund with the America's going to take over the Palestinians? Could we have spaced those two things out just a little bit so that the Jewsburgs could calm the fuck down? Because the idea that they're like Bibi Netanyahu and him are going to be doing handshakes to fucking take over Gaza like within days of setting up the Sovereign Wealth Fund is just like, I have so many like Jewsburgs that are just like, dude, so he's getting involved with the banks the same day. They're like, I'm just noticing, like, Jesus Christ, like,
well,
it's
I didn't
like
put
he's
that together,
trying
but
to grow the alt-right.
No,
What does he mean? What does he mean?
Hold on, I don't know if that's the goal there. Wouldn't it be the opposite?
I know it's not the fucking goal. I'm just saying that's a fucking, from a PR
How does
position.
that even make sense? Those two would be inherently. So wait, okay, hold on. Well, I need you to listen. I thought I was tapped in on the conspiracies. All right, you're telling me. Let me just talking that he thinks that Trump going in and saying we're taking over Gaza. They're telling me is somehow code because he's also going into the banks and like I don't know, fucking with them.
I'm not saying they're necessarily linked. I'm just saying they're both ammunition for the Jewsburgs.
Yep. So yeah, their argument those two are connected because it's the Jews.
Their argument is always that everything comes down to the Jews, right? Like,
well, that doesn't make sense because it seems like it would be the opposite. Because I don't think that Netanyahu likes the idea of Trump coming in and saying this is our turf now.
Oh
like,
yes, he fucking does.
No,
he
doesn't
loves
want
that. He
no,
absolutely
Netanyahu
does.
Have free reign to do whatever he wants.
No, this is what's gonna 110%. Israel, look, if like this is all right, fucking.
He can't
I have to be careful. I have to be careful.
Yeah, be careful.
On
Don't
Twitch
get TOS.
right, but I'm just gonna say that Israel is absolutely going to have a large amount of control, and it is going to work in their favor to engage what I can only call is like voluntary ethnic cleansing, as he describes it, where he wants to move every Palestinian out of Gaza and then build fucking Mar-a-Lago 2.0. Who do you think like is that going to be right? Like is like it's going to be a beautiful trail of tears. It's gonna we're gonna have Cherokee roses everywhere.
Yeah,
but no, like Israel is
10%
absolutely. Do you think it's going to be a U.S. territory? That he's going to
no.
Okay,
I'll tell you what
have control
I'm
over that area.
Can I give you the?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, yeah. This is.
I know I'm Spurgin.
This is what I.
Now I've become the Jewsburg.
Yeah. So let me just. This is what I foresee happening. All right. Israel's got to do what we want. They got to back our plan. Trump comes in, clears out, whatever. What are they called? Fucking Hamas clears them out, or at least he goes in there. He could go in there under the pretext so the Dems can't complain because they want someone to stop the genocide. He's going to be able to say, hey, I gave you what you wanted. We stopped the evil IDF and the evil Jewish ethno-state from killing them. I did it. You can't bitch at me. Win. Then he's going to turn right around and tell the Jews, I have secured Israel from Hamas. You couldn't do it. I did it. So Americans have to die. Now you owe us, right? Ticky tabby time, right? So time to give me the money. That's what he's going to do, and he's going to control it until it's too much of a mess, and then he's just going to blame Israel or for whatever happens that goes wrong. It's a brilliant strategy, no lose strategy.
Unless
it's definitely a lose strategy.
Unless he puts
not for him anyway. It goes bad. Well, if he does put boots on the ground, he's giving the left what they want. Republicans on the right, he'll at least appease all the people on the right that are going to be like, well, he's defeating the Jews because he can stop them.
Hold on. In what fantasy fucking world are you living in? No offense. Where the left is rational and reasonable.
Oh, well, they're not.
Isn't just going to say over and over again that this is ethnic cleansing.
It's ammunition. He's owning up ammunition for him, bro. He's going to be like, I stopped him. Your president wouldn't stop him. You wanted this genocide stopped. Trump
that'll work for the right. That'll work for the right, but that's not going to work for most people, especially when, no. Come on.
And it's also an area that we that's already lost. Like it's not like they're gonna have any problem. He probably knows where every one of those new Hamas party people are sleeping right now, right? You know, I mean,
the issue is who's going to
Trump does?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, our military probably does. You think that we're not watching that region after it's been bombed to hell?
No, there are very few intelligence agencies with capability of the United States, but the one that is greater than ours is Israel. Like they're the ones who know.
Yeah, allegedly we share all the information with each other.
Sure. But I'm just saying we're not giving them anything they don't already have in terms of intelligence.
But
they're the ones who have
resources sometimes. But
if we had, I mean, does anybody remember Beirut? 1983.
Yeah,
hundreds of Marines.
Born until 7 years.
I know about it, but yeah, go on.
Yeah, I know, but you read books, like you know what the history of the region is.
I don't get the correlation.
Ronald Reagan kept a base in Beirut, and it was bombed. Like 321 Marines were killed in that incident. And Reagan's reaction to that was to turn tail and run. And we haven't had a presence there in that part of the Middle East until now. We still don't. So if Trump reverses that and starts putting American troops on the ground, and we have a similar result, how the USS Cole created a bunch of shit, and it didn't have anywhere near that kind of lethality to it. So you can imagine what a repeat of
my issue is this: is that Egypt's not going to take the Palestinians, right? No matter how much blustering Trump does, because Egyptians hate Palestinians. They also like that it stresses Israel because they hate Israel. So they hate everybody involved. They have no desire to take them. But then, of course, there's also, Israel has not, after the Nakba, Israel has not worked in any meaningful way in resettling Palestinians on land that is rightfully theirs, where they've been moved since then, right? So you have generations of people with deeds to property that they own. And Israel hasn't set up a court to determine who was and wasn't a terrorist and who was, who deserves their land. It's just been given to other people. And Jordan's not going to take them because, last time Jordan took in a bunch of Palestinians, they tried to fucking assassinate their monarchy. And then when they kicked them out, they started a civil war. PLO started a civil war in Lebanon and genocided a bunch of people. So clearly Jordan doesn't want any fucking thing to do with them. Lebanon isn't going to take anybody because Lebanon doesn't have the infrastructure to even do it. Hezbollah wants there to be that strife in that situation. So, a majority of their neighbors in the region are not going to fucking take these people. If they do get taken by some Arab nation, they're going to be separated by multiple countries in terms of territory, and there's not going to be a resettlement effort. Can Trump successfully do it? Potentially. It's going to cost a lot of money. It's going to cost a lot of lives, and it's going to cost a lot of political clout. and I don't know what we would gain from it. And I'm pretty goddamn sure, and I don't think this makes me a conspiracy theorist, to say that Israel is going to have a large hand in it, and is probably going to have most of the control over that region, whilst we're spending most of the fucking money.
So, all right, just real quick before we go, you don't think this is so? What about like all the Muslims that voted for Trump? You don't think this is his carrot to them? No. Like that's what I don't know. I feel like depending how he spins it, that's how it's going to go down. But yeah. So anyway, back to the meta combo.
I mean, maybe if he magically, I mean, like just real quick, but if he magically is able to pull out of his ass, because sometimes him and Jared Kushner do shit that nobody expects, right? So like, you know, there's always that dice roll, that snake eyes, right? If he magically pulls out of his ass like a temporary resettlement in a nearby region, and is able to get like a 2-state solution out of this whilst building up their infrastructure in Gaza or something, then like, yeah, obviously that would be a historical, you know, one for the history books win, landslide victory for like the Trump era, you know, for the next 100 years would be talking about it. I just don't think it's, you know, as you stated earlier, Occam's razor. I don't think it's the most likely outcome by a long shot.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my simplest is you can just tell the Muslims here, hey, I stopped the genocide. Tell the lefties, I stopped the genocide. He's going to sell it to the right as like, you know, they're already lost. Like it's already done. We're just like a police action. I don't know. I think people on the right also kind of don't like just people are getting wiped out over there. You know, I feel like it's a pretty gross situation that people on both sides are almost like somebody's got to step in. I just see him selling it as like this should be bipartisan support. You know, like that's his thing. I think it extends the American Empire.
That Hitler had, okay? Since this is the rule of the internet, we always have to bring it back to Hitler. The one thing that Trump lacks that Hitler had is control over the media. You know, he is able to sell things to his base, and he's able to sell things to some people via the reaction that the media has and controversy, right? Like he says something controversial, then the media dogpiles, and then they go Trump derangement syndrome, and then normal people are like, that's not what he said, right? But he doesn't actually have control over the media. Like the state media Leviathan is not in favor of Trump. And so his ability to sell something is always going to be up against a wall, which is the media taking the worst possible interpretation and attempting to sell that. And I think what you're going to see is if no matter how this goes, you're going to see the media constantly saying Trump is doing ethnic cleansing. Trump is driving these people out of their homeland. Look, and and people are going to die. There's no way this gets done without people dying, because Hamas isn't just going to go, thank you, Trump, hug them, and then like walk to a fucking country, right? Like they're going to fight back in some regard. And every time that happens, the media is going to show those photos, show those videos. They're going to downplay the success, and they're going to up and then play the fuck out of like a dead kid that's been blown up. And like, I don't think he's selling this as a win to the Muslims.
Do you agree with that sentiment?
Well, he's spending the Dearborn crowd for one. Like I think I don't know how they're going to react to it. I think it's going to take some time, but I think it's pretty extreme reaction. I don't think it's hard to sell a new Trail of Tears to the people who are being affected by it.
I mean, what are the specifics?
Maybe this ties to our last night's discussion too, right? Maybe this is where all that USAID money has to go now. We're just going to stop USAID, and we're going to funnel $42 billion into a project in Palestine. And now we're going to have billions to create jobs and stuff. And then just call this all USAID.
I mean, what if he, on the surface.
That would not shock me.
If he made Trumptopia or Mar-a-Lago 2,
Trumptopia,
I'd be like in fucking Gaza, bro. Like, and it worked. Could you imagine though, like how much ego if it came out like, hey, listen, we give you all these streets, all this stuff, if you just get rid of Hamas, and that actually worked. Like, and he's like, I gave you Israel.
They've been given that
offer.
They've been given
year
that
after year for
decades. If you look at videos of Gaza before October 7th, right? You will see tons of fucking resorts and hotels and electricity, and you can also like
resorts.
Yes, resorts. They had fucking
Resorts.
resorts, and you can go and watch the videos. They existed before October 7th, before this kicked off again, and during the first Camp David Accords. Like part of the deal was that they, like, when they pulled back, is they gave them businesses, like they gave them like bakeries, they gave them a bunch of like restaurants. They, like, Israel like gave up businesses and just handed them over, and their response was to burn down a couple of the businesses. Now, when I say them, I obviously don't mean that the fucking Palestinian people are a monolith, right? But like, that shit existed before October 7th, and you don't hear about it. And the reason you don't hear about it is because it's not in the political interest of like our media institutions and pundits to showcase that.
Yeah, my chat is saying that I definitely don't have the right vibe on this. Apparently, it's very much New American Empire, which, you know, depending on how that goes, I'll have to read it and see exactly how I feel about it. But I'm pretty pro New American Empire in general. So yeah, that would be the selling point for the Sovereign Wealth Fund.
Yeah.
In general, but yeah, so like
we got off topic as a motherfucker. Yeah.
Yeah, that was good. That was good. But yeah, you're right.
No, but I think you did that. I think
news.
you brought that in because they may be linked. Like,
yeah, because they are linked.
And I think USAID is linked too for the reasons that Scott just gave. Yeah, I can absolutely
that
see
money. That $42 billion has to go somewhere.
Redirected.
Well,
yeah,
I mean, on top of that, I mean, like I said, it's when you look at these things. My thing necessarily hasn't been with USA. You brought this up yesterday, where I'm not inherently opposed to it. I just want someone at the top that is like, what's the end goal? What's this? Because I can look at stuff in that list that clearly needed to be cut, like just like didn't work out. Well, and if that's anything remotely close to their stated goal, and I can also wager that even if it wasn't, or they had some clandestine goal, well, some of these countries barely exist anymore, like you know, from last year. So I'm just like, no, I don't buy it. But yeah, I do think we're moving to very much a New American Empire kind of mindset, and which is why it's not important to me to define the difference between neocons and all these other things, because like I said, it's just gravy whenever they agree with me. Like, I'm not expecting to win that vote most of the time anyway, because they don't want what we want. I mean, you know what I'm saying?
I mean, like, if we're wrapping up the first topic, you know, I would reiterate kind of like those things to be leery of, because I think if you recognize that the right is, as Mark's kind of showcase, like reactionary, because their values fight against, you know, left-wing progress and goals, and so they react, you know, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, right? Then I think it's imperative upon people that sit on the right to look for those things that I described, right? Collectivism, you know, altruism as a moral duty, equality of outcome, equality of opportunity, and a disconnect from objective truth in favor of subjectivity of truth. I think so, if you're sitting on the right, those are the things you have to be leery of if you're trying to keep the right from becoming the left.
So I think this kind of highlights like your position as opposed to Gibbs, right? Because if it is collectivism is one of the main axes upon which we make this judgment, like, isn't the military itself a collectivist enterprise, right? Like,
yeah, so
that makes you pretty consistent on that issue, right? But it's I think with Gibbs it would be in tension with the rest of what
it's an conservatism, right? So like,
that's
why when we talked about capitalism, and it was like the neoliberals are capitalists, you know, sort of, because none of them are capitalists unless they're an ANCAP, right? They're not true. They're not for like Adam Smith, Wealth of Nations, free market capitalism with no government interference whatsoever.
Neoliberals and neoconservatives both are comfortable with big government. Yeah,
exactly, right. And so it's an asymptote, right? So, you know, you have to be, I mean, from my position, right, you know, when I step out of the domain of an internal critique and I start talking about my position, then like my position is, you know, kind of this place where recognizing that that's an asymptote, the only way to get rid of it is to truly get rid of it, right, is to fight every instance of it, which would include almost everything in the right wing, you know, for pure free market capitalism, pure individual liberty, right? But if Gibbs or other conservatives are trying to keep the right from becoming the left, then they have to be leery of where they sit, and that they have to be leery that they don't make more and more steps in that direction towards collectivism.
Or like I said, it's also like there's this cross between like you said with the big government thing. I want, like, it's not necessarily that I want big government. It's that I want government strong enough to get shit accomplished. And I guess, I mean, or Fabian, that'd probably be any government's big government, right? It's bad government. But I'm over here going, like, I want the U.S. military, right, to have some teeth. I want us to be really good at foreign policy. I just don't think on an individual level, you know, we could compete with, say, like China, right? Just like countries exist. We need a big, mean government, lean, mean, killer machine. But the emphasis is on lean, right? I would much rather prefer to build, like, I don't know, like a tiger. It's got a lot of muscle, it's got a little fat, as opposed to, like, say, I don't know, a hippo. Even though a hippo could probably kill a tiger, like as far as the government.
Say bad example, right? Man.
Yeah,
Hippos
sure, but like, but hippos are also kind of restricted by one big thing: water. You know, like it's kind of like they're badass.
All I'm saying is when I was a child, all right, I saw Steve Irwin on a nature documentary, and I watched this man fuck up alligators and smack them on the face and crocodiles like it was nothing. And then I was watching him in a John boat one day in like wherever the fuck hippos are in Africa somewhere. I don't want to say the wrong word, but you know, like it'd be like, it's not in the Serengeti, it's actually in the grasslands, whatever, right? And I saw him be like, all right, we're going to hop out and we're going to make sure that we stay at least a couple 100 meters away from these hippos. And I was like, oh shit, hippos are not one to be fucked with. If Steve Irwin doesn't want to get anywhere near these motherfuckers.
Yeah, and apparently elephants during musk is even worse than that. That's what I was reading recently. They're real crazy. They have videos of them fucking up hippos. I'm like, anything that can fuck up a hippo is a problem. like, oh man. And then the really bad thing about hippos is they work in packs. Like, you don't want to, anyway, we got off subject again. But yeah, I don't know. I'm pro empire building, but I am very hesitant. I'm very afraid, like, because like you said, Fabi, with the line, it's not necessarily like when my people are in charge. It's like how is the left going to take what the right has created and bastardize it, right? Like that.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, I saw like
somebody on Twitter. It's like Satan can't create nothing, but he can fucking corrupt everything, kind of thing.
I saw somebody on Twitter and they had posted something. It was like some rhino, some like Lincoln Project-esque type person, whatever, right? And they were like, they had like quote tweeted some breaking news about something Trump was doing. I don't even remember what it was, but it was something they disagreed with, obviously. And they were like, I've never been proven more right. How my greatest decision was to vote against Donald Trump. And I was like, dude, you lost. Like your Starbucks, your choice to either buy or not buy Starbucks has had more of an effect on the world than your vote against Trump, because that's how this, you know, constitutional republic works. It's like you lost. You were in the 48.6%, and because of that, you have to suffer under the yoke of everything that Trump does. You have no fucking choice, and he has control of the guns now. Right, like, and it's true as true for the left as it is for the right. Is that like every investment of power that you give to the state is power that will eventually be used against you unless you die tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, it's concerning. But Icowrich, any closing thoughts on this one before we switch over?
No, honestly, I think all of these topics are gonna like link to each other so much that I kind of feel like we can still pull some of these things, like if we go into trade, it's gonna definitely be linked to everything that we just talked about. So I don't.
That's what happens when you get smart people together.
Good. Let's let's move on to the opposite day portion where we argue argue and discuss things that we would usually whatever. I had one I put forth. Did we all want to do an individual one, or do we just want to have one today and argue about? What do y'all want to?
Well, I think it's better if you just go ahead with like one topic and we stay together.
Sure. Okay. Then let's just start with the one that I brought up. I am pro. Wait, what was that?
I said we can try that. Like we'll just try with the one, and if it works out, then we won't need the.
Yeah, or if it's like slow, we got backups. Yeah. All right. So. Yeah. I put forth that I'm pretty pro the cancel culture, right? I like the idea of people getting together, deciding they don't like something, or what, going forward. And that seems, at least lately. Now, I'm not saying you argued, I think in chat, that that was actually creation of the right, and I would argue, yeah, it was the creation of the right. In fact, that goes so far as to argue that we can even argue like Salem witch trial kind of things even fall under the cancel culture because they canceled their membership on Life kind of thing, right? Like it's, really, it's really simple. Like, so I would agree that in many aspects the right did that. However, I would say lately, for at least the last 20, 30 years. The left has been the one that's predominantly doing it. And I know a lot of people tend to think of people on the right just will dismiss people's flaws no matter what they are, whatever. However, I'm pretty big on if I don't like somebody, cancel them. Like I'm pretty petty about it. Or I'll just like not about them. Are y'all fans of cancel culture? What are my thoughts here?
So when I think of cancel, I guess we could ask when it began, right? I guess everyone has like a different point in their life when they noticed it. So to them, it began whenever they're thinking about it, right?
Mhm.
The earliest examples that like sort of were things that I noticed were conservatives canceling Disney for being pro-gay. Not the most recent Disney stuff, but I'm talking about 30 years ago. Disney had like days where they encouraged like gay people to come visit the park, and conservatives canceled them over that. I think that was a big one. But then, do you remember the original one? When I think of the word cancel culture, like how, or the term, how it came to be, I think if you were to go and do one of those like searches, that one of those Google Ngram searches, I think you would find that the term shoots up right about the time somebody tried to cancel Stephen Colbert for his like racist. He was making fun of racism in his skit, and his parody of racism was itself labeled racism, and the hashtag was actually cancel Colbert. And I think, if anything, the cancel Colbert like hashtag sort of put him on the map. I think it was the first time when we saw cancel culture actually backfiring and making people. We would then see it happen with Chick-fil-A and with a whole bunch of other things where all of a sudden you get a lot more business because people are trying to cancel you. So I think it backfires. By and large, I'm like, if you want to quietly stop shopping somewhere because you don't like the corporate values, I think that's fine. But I think that the idea that drawing attention to something is going, it's like the Streisand effect. It just has the opposite effect that you need it to. And so just not even on as a question of whether or not I think it like is morally right. I just think it doesn't work by and large. That's not to say that there aren't instances when it does, but I think when it does, it's times when everybody looks at somebody and everyone agrees like they're kind of fucked up. Like I think Kanye is a perfect example of somebody who actually was legitimately canceled and never came back from it.
Okay, maybe thoughts. I have some responses when he's done.
Sure.
Yeah, so I think I think we need to recognize that there's a difference between cancel culture and canceling someone. I think that's really the main thing here, right? I would say that first and foremost, you don't have a like from a libertarian perspective, right? You absolutely have a right to cancel people, and I don't even believe in a right to privacy, which is probably something a lot of people balk at. But my vision of what that would look like is more complicated. Yeah, but what I would say is there's a difference between canceling an individual and then cancel culture, and so I think it is good and it is right and it is in our own rational self-interest, right, to call out companies or people that engage in morally reprehensible behavior and remove them. But cancel culture is when I think, the way I view it, right? Obviously, like most of these terms kind of start around 2014 because that's when, people got all these fucking, came out of college with like, critical theory in their head and started using all the new woke terms in journalism, right? Like most of these, like you might be right that the cancel culture term came later and it might even have started with him, right? The big one that I think of in my head is the Satanic Panic, right? Like the Satanic Panic to me is like the first example of like huge, like
I played D&D in the 80s. Sorry.
Right.
So
and so it's like, so there's canceling an individual and then there's cancel culture. So canceling an individual, like you said, like Kanye West, right? Now I think it's kind of funny that Kanye West got canceled because if he'd have just waited like a year to say everything he said, he never would have been canceled. Because
he would have been drowned out by everyone else saying it. Yeah.
All the lefts, well, not only that, but the left would have been like, fuck yeah, the Jews are a problem. Like right after like the fucking Gaza war and shit. Like there's a lot of anti-Semitism on the left, but they were real angry at him. You know what I mean? Like, and then a year later, they have an entirely different opinion. But so like I look at situations like the Satanic Panic where, you have canceling is fine for an individual. But then when and I think the Satanic Panic is the first instance of cancel culture, in my opinion. And the reason is I think cancel culture is almost requires. You can see it in isolated communities like Gibbs brought up with the Salem witch trials, but it requires this like communication between people and this like game of telephone and this hysteria for certain values. And then cancel culture comes in and it starts to sweep in this wave innocent people, right? So we saw this with the Satanic Panic where like, you know, D&D was accused of being the satanic force.
Me Too is a good
evil.
example.
And that was the next one I was going to bring up. Me Too, right? Like Aziz Ansari had a bad date and got canceled, and like the voice actor from
I think that was back long time.
in Blizzard, right? Like he
got
got
reversed
canceled.
really fast. Aziz Ansari, like he was initially they tried to cancel him, and then very shortly, like within weeks. That
might be a bad example.
You could say the same thing about your Colbert example. Colbert's doing fucking fine. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, no, that Colbert backfired big time on the.
But hold on,
but the Blizzard, employee that was the voice actor.
By the way, I put a link on
there.
But
the Blizzard voice actor for Illidan Stormrage, right? Now, Blizzard is a company that we found out a few years after the Me Too movement had things like cube crawls and was legitimately sexually harassing women and had all of these fucking problems. And yet, cancel culture didn't go after Blizzard Entertainment or Bobby Kotick. It went after a single voice actor based off of accusations on Twitter from an ex-girlfriend whom he was in current legal litigation with because she was a stalker that made up lies, and he proved all of everything that she said wrong in court. And Blizzard never apologized. They sacked him. They got rid of his royalties. They got rid of his monies and his ability, and then they hired a shitty voice actor. Like this is the problem with cancel culture. Like canceling an individual is good when they are engaged in bad behavior because that's the market expressing their disagreement with it via the voice and via with purchasing power. But what we have to be careful of is when when our hysteria, when our culture starts to try and just look for people, it starts to try and find people to cancel. And the social media domain is like a step up, I think, from the Satanic Panic. Not necessarily in terms of that it's worse than Satanic Panic, but that the connection and the capacity for that hysteria is worse because now we have algorithms and echo chambers and like a constant stream of like people's opinions. And so I would say it starts with the Satanic Panic is kind of where I would begin it.
I'll put the link in the side chat. It starts like the year after the cancel Colbert thing, like the term cancel culture in terms of the percentage of the time that the word is used in the English language.
Yeah, but so you mentioned when they don't work. I think sometimes they do work. I think a really good example of this is the Adpocalypse on Twitch, right? Which is where we had, Hassan and Frogan and all that bullshit. And then all these companies pulled their ads. Now, we as Twitch streamers suffer a little bit if you have ad revenue, right? Because especially if you have politics on there, you don't get shit now. However, I am actually a fan of this because Twitch has now changed their moderation policy quite a bit on it, right? So on like conservatives are starting to be able to come back a little bit. So I see like results where like there are different ways to cancel and have cancel culture. Mm-hmm. I agree the Colbert thing didn't work too well, but some of them, for example, the Dixie Chicks, even if they come back to a certain level, they're never coming back. Like they're never gonna people just have them synonymous with being almost traitors, even though they're not nearly as bad as say like Jane Fonda. Like Jane Fonda, it took how long until recently she came back? There are people that have been canceled, and I think it's actually useful when somebody does something so against whatever like the societal norm is, like in this case kind of thing. Like I don't know. Like okay, let's just take another example here, right? Let's look at the common thing with Destiny, right, coming out, right? It seems like he might be on the way out. Who knows? And he's like, oh, I'm going to cause these other people to go. And this is kind of where you get to like, hey, are these people actually trying to be swept up? But if it's like it's either the Epstein Island thing. If they're on a list, are they bad? That kind of is like. Well, I guess I see where Fabian's concern comes from. However, in general, I'd rather people like get accused and then they dig up that they're fine later than, let's not even cancel at all, right? Like, Right, like, I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, if you hear somebody's diddling kids, you're like, oh, that's the diddler's house. Maybe somebody should look into that, right? Like,
well,
yeah.
like the problem is that the accusation never goes away, even when you prove yourself right. Like that's the issue. Is that let's look at the another example of a group of people that were canceled. Right, was the Duke lacrosse team that were.
I followed that one live. That was
or like the guy that was accused of raping Mattress Girl, right? It's like these people never get their reputation back, despite whatever fucking evidence. When the Rolling Stone was involved in both of these, right? Which is probably a big reason why people don't even fucking think of them as a major publication anymore.
I don't know Mattress Girl.
Well, Mattress Girl, like she accused a guy of raping her, and then she drug a mattress as like part of a sociology project, like the mattress that she was raped on around college campus. Then they expelled the guy from school, and they did like an internal investigation, ruined a bunch of the evidence and witness testimony, and like it never happened. But the kid never got his, he had to go to like a bullshit college. His reputation was like. Right, was ruined, and then she later made a pornography video of like basically like if I was raped, here's how it happened, and then put on Pornhub how she was raped to like get more views and clout off of this like fake thing. And Rolling Stone did this whole thing where they just like they corrugated him publicly and called him a rapist, and and that kid never got his life back. And so it's like
but is that part of the cancel culture or part of the woke thing, right? Like, there's two levels.
The woke thing is a fucking part of that cancel culture, though, right?
No, I think cancel culture is just a tool of the woke lately.
I mean, the right uses it too, right? Like libs of TikTok will go after like a random fucking Lowe's employee and like, showcase their opinion about fucking, Donald Trump assassination attempt, and then tell the entire world some lady that posted something on Facebook that had like 4 views before she found it, right? And then she's like getting fired and all that. Now you can agree that that's good or that's bad, but like, I feel like that expression of power to go after a 52-year-old lady working at Lowe's is like not really an effective use of power to like make our society better, right? Like it's really just an attempt to garner attention and garner clout and garner like, you stretch that power into the culture. So I mean, like it happens on the left and the right.
So I think maybe I see a chink in the armor on this opposite day thing, right? Because you're presenting a position that is kind of Gibbs, that's kind of opposite of what most people on the right. I think by me saying that cancel culture backfires a lot of the time, I'm kind of like being, opposite day on that. Do you have Scott, do you have like a position that people wouldn't expect an ANCAP to have on this issue? It's okay if you don't. I mean, this is his opposite day, not yours.
We're all kind of like, I don't know that all of us are going to be aligned on opposite
position
exactly type thing, right? Like I'm just
asking.
I'm pro canceling, right? I think I'm pro, like if you don't agree with, like, for example, like I am, when I buy chocolate, like I buy like if I want like a candy chocolate, like I buy Dr. Bronner's chocolate, right? Because I agree with the values and the way that the company engages in regenerative farming and fair trade of the cocoa. And there's horrible shit that's like if you're purchasing chocolate from Hershey's, like you as much as Hershey's tries to deny and then run away, like they've multiple times been caught using essentially slave labor for their chocolate that they're sourcing.
Or Nestle with their
right. And then when they get caught, they shift to a new supplier, and then they're like, well, we didn't have any control, right? And it's like Mr. Beast, had a similar problem with his Beast bars where like originally he was using pure fair trade, and then he had to take that away, and he was like, look, we're doing the best that we can, but we can't necessarily like ensure that when we make as much chocolate as we make that we're getting like good sources. So like we do the best that we can, like that is a form of utilizing your voice in the market to purchase products and to not purchase products. And I think that's good. I think it's good and right and in my own rational self-interest to not buy fucking products from Hershey's. Hershey's is really bad and a shitty company that doesn't actually give a fuck whether or not they use black slaves, if you want to make it a little bit more fucking spicy for the lefty people, right? But like, you know what I mean? Like, so I think canceling is good, but it's like when we get swept up in a culture of like certain values and trying to hunt down people that oppose us, we engage in two things. One, nut picking, which is where we find random crazy people with no power and no audience, and then we blow them up so that we can be like, this is what the left is like, or this is what the right is like. And then number two, we latch on to any bullshit story and ruin people's lives because we're hungry to cancel people that politically oppose us or that we view as like partially the enemy. And we saw this with Me Too. We saw this with Satanic Panic. We see this with some of the LGBT, Q anti-queer theory stuff, right? Like we see this from multiple domains.
I think part of it too is that we have so many new tools by which we can cancel people, right? Like it's easier to point to somebody.
Debank people.
Yeah, it's right. Everything is a target now, and
like
especially
look at Nick Fuentes, like the dude can't even have a bank account. Like that's part of that's the government engaging in cancel culture, but also like PayPal and shit like that.
So you'll know this, like being a psych guy.
Wait. Hold on. 1 second, Ika. What? The government has said he can't have a bank account. Is that because he's a Nazi? Is that why?
Not
so
the government.
The government doesn't engage in debanking.
I don't know this lore.
So
on him not
this
having
is
his
deep.
bank account.
This is deep lore. You're gonna have to go into it. I'll send you some videos. Mark Andreessen talks.
Well, I don't know
about
if I want
this a
the
lot.
videos. I just want to know summary. Why does he not have a bank account?
Okay, so the government doesn't actively engage in debanking because the government isn't, since they're not actually in charge of banks. But what they do is the government has, like, if you're engaged in a lot of crypto, or if you're engaged in like really anti-government things, the government will then send memos, and different regulatory agencies will send memos threatening suits or threatening your bank with like potential investigations because you're banking with certain people. And then what the banks will do is be like, oh, well, then we'll just get rid of that person and then we don't have to worry about it. Right. And
of course, why wouldn't they?
Why wouldn't they? Like what capitalist banking institution would like be like, no, we're sticking up for this one guy that makes up 0.00001% of our fucking, our money.
Okay, so I know why you'll object to that as an ANCAP. I don't necessarily have I would have a problem. This is once again where the
Biden
line
administration
is.
Use it heavily to go after.
Yeah,
crypto.
I could see like maybe somebody coming to power and be like, "Ooh, we don't like what he has to say." Debank him like that. Yeah, it's a little serious. I'm gonna have to ponder that one.
Well, simpler than that, the government doesn't even have to get involved. Like what I was trying to say was that, if you remember those psychological studies that say, especially men, but if you go into the bathroom and you put a little target in the urinals, like men will aim for the target. Like there's something fundamentally human nature to be able to like fix ourselves to a target, and then we all go there. Yeah, so if somebody just random on Twitter says, let's go after this guy, then everyone's going to start targeting that person. It's almost instinctive that we do that. With the debanking stuff, all you really have to do is have enough people protesting that particular institution saying, we're not going to do business with you.
Yeah, it becomes a domino effect.
Yeah. So in order to keep our business, you've got to cancel that person's account. And then when that happens, you find out the next place that he goes to. And then you do
I understand.
This happened with the Proud Boys, right?
Yeah.
Like, so the Proud Boys got debanked from Chase because a journalist contacted them and was like, why are you supporting Nazis? And they were like, whoa, we don't support Nazis. We'll get rid of this.
Right.
And then they attempted to go to PayPal, and before they could even move their money into PayPal debanked them. And then like the Proud Boys like found themselves having to engage in like Bitcoin transfers and Bitcoin wallets as a means of housing their money because there was literally no other way for them to store money somewhere.
Okay. I understand like the basic concepts, right? I mean, and now that I'm thinking about it, like how else would you get cartels? Like I get it as a tool, right? It makes sense as a tool, right? Like I also don't know. Well, I don't want the Fed involved directly in banking.
But I'm just talking about individual private
awful.
Citizens are doing this. Like you don't necessarily have to be targeted.
Well,
by
the Chase
FBI
thing was an example of like the journalism, right?
Well,
like
Well, okay, but once again, I don't have a problem with that kind of power. Like, listen, if I want to tell people I'm not going to do business with you, if you do business with so and so, I feel like that's not necessarily a bad thing either. Like, sure, some people can use that for gain, opposite to mine, but like, if you really believe in the free market,
it's almost like the public.
That is the free market, though, right? Like,
yes, that's what I'm saying. This is the public sort of enforcing the Overton window, right? If you're far enough outside the Overton window, you're going to have a hard time having access to all of these services. And the opposite's happening too. You've got like, for instance, with marijuana, the less stigmatized marijuana has become, the easier it has become for people who sell marijuana to gain access to these services too. It's slow, but it's improving, especially in states where it's been legalized.
Right. So I think this is where the libertarian in me has to make something clear, right? That I do all the time, but people keep forgetting, right? Is a right, a capacity, and whether or not we ought do something can often be three different things, right? So I agree that we as a society ought have the right to engage in canceling people, that banks ought have the right to go, I don't want to be associated with you. I'm, et cetera. But that doesn't mean
free association. I mean, it's in the First Amendment.
Right. Well, some parts of free association are in the
way that it's interpreted.
I knew that he was going to object to that. And as soon as you said it, I don't even know why you said that. I'm just
for other people in the Constitution.
No, I know. I'll give you that time.
Right, but what I mean is that there's a difference between but as a society, ought we stand behind these cultural movements that start churning up and like things like debanking or deplatforming or trying to cancel somebody because they have political opinions that we disagree with? Is that in our rational self-interest? And I don't think in most cases it is, right? Like I do think like for example, when we talk even when we talk about, let's say, like Alex Jones, for example, right? Mm-hmm. There was, YouTube and all these people. Now, let's set aside and let's just assume the government wasn't involved in that at all, right? That was, which is a big assumption, but let's just assume that this is purely private organizations, right, that collectively got together and decided to get rid of Alex Jones on the platforms. And people go, well, that works, right? That was a great example of how deplatforming works. He had less reach. Isn't this good? And it's like, the measurements are bad. The measurements of the success of cancel culture are shit. And the reason they're shit is because they treat everybody that views content with deplatforming as a monolith. Because what it shows is that, yes, Alex Jones lost viewers, he lost subscribers, he lost money, he lost reach and influence. But the people that were dedicated to Alex Jones are now no longer on that platform. And so when YouTube suggests them a counter to an Alex Jones video that they just watched, now that he's off of YouTube, that counter's not there. When people are watching an Alex Jones video on YouTube and someone makes a comment that's crazy, there's nobody else in the comment section that says, hey, that's crazy. Here's what the research actually shows. Here's why that's crazy and wrong. And so, like Alex Jones is not, like, in my idea, like the most pernicious, dangerous person, but like you look at something like Red Ice TV when they were canceled, which is an explicitly white supremacist, like media organization when it came out. Well, those people just went to Daily Stormer. Those people just went to other corners of the internet, and now they have no pushback. And it's like, yeah, they lost reach to spread their ideas, and sure, you can measure that as a success because they lost that reach. But I think the problem is that it's not a meaningful metric of success when you're not measuring the people that leave a platform, even if it's a smaller number, that become radicalized and have no pushback. I think this pushes and starts to put cracks in our society.
Well, how do you counter that?
Move people off platforms.
Well, I think you bring up a good concern there, right? But like, I don't know that there's really a solution for that right now, right? Like, because anybody can make a forum. I can make a forum right now, $10 a month, or maybe even less.
We're in a new world. Like, if you read Orwell, for instance, 1984 or whatever, the way information is manipulated there is like pretty hardcore. They'll just they're rewriting history, like literally in that novel, right? But then you look at something like Brave New World, they're not necessarily being so heavy-handed, right? They're controlling the discourse a lot more subtly.
Well,
And
they
I think
don't need to because they're controlling they're controlling the development of the brain from birth.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but everything they're doing like allows you to have like in 1984, like there's no like conception of freedom at all. But in Brave New World, it's almost scarier because there's no way to recognize the slow loss of freedom that's coming, because that loss of freedom is coming in the guise of a society that's willing to give you everything, right? Like there aren't even taboos in society. Like, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And
Aldous
so
Huxley is, not a socialist like Orwell. So he's you can see his conservative flair in pointing out the problems of degeneracy and hedonism and libertine concepts.
Well, this is a Catholic concept too, right? The notion that we misunderstand freedom. We think freedom is the ability to do anything we want. But, the Catholic notion of it is that too much freedom is itself a kind of slavery. And that's and it's not actual freedom.
Can't both be true?
I think there's dangers of societies that can go in both directions, right? Like Soviet Union was going more in the direction of what of 1984. And I think the West has been going more in the direction of the New World.
Specifically what you were just saying with the Catholic versus the what was it with the freedom?
Okay,
thing, right?
so when I look at this is going to be,
can't both of those be true?
This is going to put me a little bit in tension with the Catholic Church, and also considerably in tension with Scott, because I'm looking at consequence a lot more here than what he would want to do. And so, yeah, you can have principles that dictate your behavior, but at some point, if you're starting to overdo that and you start to get poor consequences as a result, I think you have to attend to those. And so I think that we have to. Even logicians say that sometimes you have to poke your head out and look at the world and compare your predictions in the world of logic to what's actually happening in the material world. And to that degree, I think one of the ways that you can check yourself, sort of check your math, is to see whether or not like something is going wrong as a result of your assumptions, and then modify them. Right.
Well, hold on.
I know that doesn't sound very Catholic, because we're very we tend to be rule followers and we tend not to make those kinds of corrections. But I think that's one way to.
We're similar in this. I get this all the time from people that misunderstand me, because like libertarianism, anarcho-capitalism is a legal theory, right? It doesn't give me oughts and ought nots, right? Hoppe says famously that libertarianism is inherently right-wing and discriminatory, right? Like I am an objectivist second to being a libertarian, right? Like, so, I think order in a society is necessary, and I think degeneracy is bad, right? So like, I don't disagree with you at all. I think too much freedom it's the problem is the usage of the word freedom. Like I would replace freedom with a lack of order, right? Like if you don't have an ordered society that, excises degeneracy and socially shames or banishes people from your community, that engage in hedonistic, libertine ideas, then you have a dysfunctional society that is no longer high trust and has all these other problems.
The spirit of opposite day. I like some of these red state laws on pornography, on having to prove your age and putting a few barriers in.
Right. Before we move on real quick, I just want to point out. Yeah, well, let's come back here real quick. I'm sorry. I just want to respond to what he just said. I think that's where I think a big difference between, like, say, me and Fabian is right here, right? Like, I don't have a problem with it. Just saying, it's kind of my thing is, as long as you are good in society, in order, right? Like, and you follow the rules, the societal norms in public, cool. I maybe this is where, I guess, because the privacy thing, it's not even the privacy aspect of this to me, really. But it's like, say I follow all the rules when I'm outside my home. And I have, like, I don't know, a few acres out in the middle of nowhere. When I go home, if I want to smoke crack and fuck hookers and sing songs, the fucking ball, I don't fucking know, whatever I want to do, and like weird shit, as long as I'm not hurting no other people, like, why I should not be able to do that as long as I'm productive in society. Now, people just can't handle that. Like, this is where I come back. Like, yeah, I want the freedom to do whatever I want, right? I also have to be able to like do the freedom where it's like, within the order of the thing of society. That's good. But it's also like, I feel like you can have both at the same time, because I can also recognize there's a too far down the path. And just because you can get down too far down the path doesn't mean we should have the rules to stop you.
Well, there's a clear bright line for this, right? Oh, Scott, let me just say this real fast because it won't take me long to say this. There's a clear, bright line for this. Let me just latch on to one of the things you said. You want to go home and smoke crack, right? The reason I'm for marijuana legalization, there's a long list of them, but a lot of them are just consequential. It has to do with society pays way more, in cost than it does benefits by making that illegal. But if you're talking about a drug that robs you of your free will, and yeah, I'm one of the people that believes that that's the case, then and it's no longer a free choice that you're making, right? You're now fashioning your own prison. And I think that society has an interest in stopping that from happening. Any drug that doesn't have that kind of addictive effect, and we can argue as to where that line is in terms of how addictive it would have to be, but there comes a point at which you shouldn't cross that line. So that would be one example of.
I don't want to touch that because I want to go back to what Gibbs was saying.
Okay.
But I recognize that argument is there, and I don't want to just pass over it.
Sure.
But
Understood.
To respond to Gibbs, right? So what I am saying about libertarianism being inherently right-wing and discriminatory is not saying that every society is going to ban all of those things, right? What I'm saying is that there is a critical mass in a balance between a society that is difficult to blow off steam, right? And a society that is so structured that everyone is pent up, right? And being able to go home and smoke crack might work for you, but it's not going to work for everybody. And so if we have a society that allows everybody to go home and smoke crack, then what you're going to have is a society with no copper pipes, because people are going to be stealing the copper pipes to get more crack, right? And so it's like
free market that, right?
So the thing is that under a libertarian ethos, it's like, look, you can go live in your society that's the modern day Tortuga, and you're going to have all your fucking problems if you want to live there. And then there's going to be another society. There's 1,000 Liechtensteins, right? There's going to be another society that's a little bit more liberal. And then there's going to be societies that are like the Amish, and they're all going to be in competition with each other in terms of the free market to figure out which societies thrive and which societies produce more and which societies are dysfunctional. And so it's like, maybe in my society or in my neighborhood, the landlord has the right to put in a morality clause that says, so long as you're a tenant in my establishment, you don't have a right to fucking smoke crack, because that's the contract that we agree to if you choose to rent from me, right? Or maybe the society voluntarily comes up with some rules, but then maybe another society doesn't do that. And they don't care what you do so long as you do it in your own home. When I say libertarianism is inherently right-wing and discriminatory, what I mean by that is that it is of my opinion, philosophically, that functionalism and prosperity requires order and requires freedom to discriminate, requires people to be able to express their values via their freedom of association, whether or not they choose to only hang out with crackheads or whether or not they choose to ban crackheads. That it requires that freedom of discrimination beyond on any means. Could be racial, could be money, could be whatever, right? And so it's like, I'm not saying you ought not have the right to go into your house and smoke crack. What I'm saying is that a functional society of voluntary people working together that is going to outcompete other societies is going to be one where you don't have a bunch of crackheads.
Well, theoretically, I mean, I don't know. I think that maybe the crackheads would outwork us all. I don't know if you've ever seen a motivated crackhead, bro. I don't know.
That's the thing about non-aggression. Right? Maybe I'm wrong, and so you get the opportunity to compete in that regard to figure out where that line is.
To be fair, this is I think I said this the other day.
To the Savage Reservation.
Well, hey, thanks for the raid, game man. Also, thanks for Joe Broke for the raid earlier. Also, so to be fair, I think this is why we can work together on most issues, because under both of our worldviews, the other can exist. Right, because when I talk about
is the only fucking one that really gives
now, that's on my fundamental worldview. Now, when it comes to my personal habit or policy wise, I always look out for Papa first. That's I theory crafting my ideal world, whatever versus my realism world. Sure, I feel like under both systems, we can exist. I think that's why we can get along versus back to our first conversation with the left. I don't get along with none of what they do. That's bad. But anyway, sorry, Ico, go ahead.
I was just going to point out that separation that Fabian was talking about was in Brave New World, it's called the Savage Reservation, right? So if you had because they wanted to have the illusion of freedom, and so you can do all the things that you want to do that are against society. You just have to live in the Savage Reservation if you're going to do that. If you're going to live in the society that has the Soma,
Obviously they're not one-to-one because it's not voluntary.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, it has the illusion of being voluntary, right? You can choose to follow the rules, and if you don't, then you can continue to live how you want in the Savage Reservation. But of course, there it's reversed. It's not that you can do drugs there. It's reversed because you only get the drugs in the primary society, not in the reservation, which is interesting. Which is an interesting difference. And I would argue that this was a critique of capitalism gone too far. Like Gibbs, you responded to that, to Scott's point, by saying the words the free market. But I would argue, and I guess this is like the same Catholic argument that I've been making, that it's a market, but it's not free, right? It's a compelled market because addiction is what's fueling the market, not free choice. Maybe the first time you take it, it's a free choice, right? To some degree.
I mean,
but there comes a point at which that choice goes away.
I don't necessarily disagree with you, right? Like if you're like a full blown heroin addict, right? There is a point where you are no longer a rational actor. And it's probably whilst you're high, right? Like, I don't think incentives because
while
you're addicted,
detoxing,
I don't agree to that, right? Like, you're a rational actor. You have choice. You're saying if you make the claim that free will is gone because a heroin addict wants their next hit, right? Then you have to make the claim that people that are poor have no free will because they're
I would allow more nuance than that. I would argue,
and that God actually is pro stealing because it's not you can't violate the 10 Commandments of thou shalt not steal because you don't have free will at that point. That God didn't give you free will because you're poor, right? Like you have to at a certain point. Your argument has to be.
No, I think there's more nuance.
Are they not a rational actor?
This probably makes your point even stronger. But I would say that you always have. Heidegger talks about this a lot, right? About how, for him, the highest goal in life is authenticity, and authenticity is understanding the degree to which you are free and the degree to which you are thrown into society. And he says we almost always get it wrong, and I tend to agree with that philosophy, which is to say there's a degree of freedom you have, maybe even when you're at the depths of your addiction the most, right? And there's a degree of thrownness, a degree in which society acts upon us. I mean, I don't know why my Catholic is coming up right now, but like,
hold on,
is it wrong or is it right? Or I guess I should say, do you have free will if you're hungry? If you're hungry,
well, that's okay. That's where I wanted to go with this.
Well, then, so if you're starving, is it not the person's fault if they steal food? Or is it their fault if they steal food?
So yeah, that's what I would like to answer.
Les Miserables, right?
Well, hold on, let me jump in real quick.
That whole novel.
I saw it in New York actually on Broadway.
Yeah, there you go. So when he steals that loaf of bread to feed his starving children, I would argue that he still does have some free will, and in fact,
to be fair,
he
also stole candelabras and silver dishware. To feed his children.
But he goes to prison for the bread. Right, but he was caught for the bread. That was the crime that
he was
caught.
caught breaking and entering to steal silver and happened to steal bread.
I understand, yeah. But, well, hold on. I think he only stole... Well, okay, I have to go back and look at it. My understanding is that in that particular instance, he stole bread and nothing else. Although he did break things and there was more...
Maybe I'm wrong because we're comparing the book and the Broadway.
Yeah. Right. I grew up reading the book. I had to read it for high school or whatever. But at the end, he does conclude that he is still responsible for what he did. He doesn't reject his responsibility. So even... he would tell you that Jean Valjean would say that he's responsible for what he did. He made a choice. So I would say that it's a spectrum. There are degrees to which you're responsible, and that spectrum moves a lot when you're in the throes of addiction. And you know this better than anybody else. I don't think I have to persuade you of this. You've done addiction counseling, was my understanding. So there's got.
I haven't. I have not done addiction.
You've been trained in it, or you have background.
Yeah. I went to grad school for it, and I've read a lot of the research.
There you go.
I've done some.
So
stuff,
you know this probably.
Well, I don't want to misrepresent my credentials. I don't want to get in a not so
sure.
situation.
Well,
Right,
so
right.
let me just jump in here because I actually think if you really take your thought out further, like
Yeah.
with the starvation thing, you really get into the conversation like what is free will, right? Like,
Mhm.
so because you're gonna go, okay, these environmental actors are doing whatever. It's like, does an octopus have free will? Does like a dolphin have free will, right? Like there's some of these apes, like when we get into space, how would we interact with like a carbon-based life form, right?
Mhm.
What is their intelligence? What is
Well,
their
we're carbon-based,
what is free
yeah.
will? Not carbon, I mean like silicone-based life form or something. Like, how do you define free will at that point? Like, I feel like you just get so far down the line, like that it almost like doesn't matter, right? I don't know. That's kind of where the problem I see when we take this free will angle.
I think it does matter, and understandably, we're not going to get to an absolute answer at the philosophical level, but there is a degree to which, just at the experiential level, that we can understand when we've had more control over our lives or less. Like we understand that there's a spectrum there, and we're not going to always get it right. But I think that we do know it. Let's go back and look at it at the behaviorist level, where all we really care about is, what's the input that goes in and what's the input that goes out. And when crack goes into that black box, a bunch of shit comes out the other side, whatever you think about free will or what the causation is along the way. And so that's why I'm a little bit consequential on this, because I am saying that, yeah, when we have enough bad outcomes, we should maybe think about pulling that lever.
I reject, and I don't think we're going to be movable in this. I reject the premise that free will comes in degrees of capacity, right? Like, I think you are either a rational actor that is capable of making rational decision, like making morally valid claims and observing reality in the universe, and capable of recognizing that like A equals A, etc. And then acting upon those claims of choice, or you aren't. I think it is a black and white thing.
That may be an axiomatic conflict. That's hard.
Yeah,
to resolve.
I would ground it in objectivist philosophy and like consciousness occurring in the mind and the ability to perceive consciousness, and that our ability, the law of identity, and our ability to identify means that we have free will, and that we have that capacity.
So for you, it is a binary, right? We either have free will
it's
or
a binary.
we don't. There's no.
For me,
that is something
I just reject the notion
that could be a whole panel by itself. Right?
I reject the notion that you have 50% free will because you're a drug addict or because you're hungry, right? Like, I recognize that there are influences on behavior, right? But that those influences do not absolve you of responsibility, like you said before. And I do recognize that, like, they don't become justifications for,
but keep in mind, we're not. That's
there's even a legal precedent for this in U.S. law
against people.
Okay,
well,
but keep in mind
there's
that
even a legal precedent for that, like U.S. law, right? Like, if you go and you kill somebody while you're driving drunk,
but that's
right?
not the level. Wait, hold on.
Hold on, but
that's not the level. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about whether or not it's. No. We're not talking about whether or not we're going to hold somebody responsible for a choice that they make. We're talking about whether or not a highly addictive substance should be allowed in society, because the impact that I just said that let's keep it a black box. We're talking about inputs and outputs. Fine, put somebody in jail if they're drunk driving or whatever. But all I'm saying is there are certain substances that are so addictive that whatever you think the reason is, maybe it's not because of the robbing of free will, maybe it's for some other reason. But whatever the reason is, when you allow these things, when you have these policies, you get a lot of ruined lives at the end. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying use this as a defense to stop people from going to prison, although that's a separate conversation.
It's one of those axioms I was talking about, right?
Yeah.
Right. Collectivism versus individualism, right? Like the individual's right to engage in choice versus the collective good of society, the greater good. And in this instance, this is a more left-wing kind of position that Icowrich is saying, which is, even if it appears to come from the right because, drugs bad, degeneracy, porn bad, degeneracy,
right.
It is that axiom that the individual's liberty to engage in those actions is less valuable than the
That's why I said this is my
collective
opposite
desire to well, I would say you're generally left wing. I don't really think that's much of an opposite.
No, I am, but on this issue, conservatives agree with me more. Maybe that's changing. Certainly I'm not saying libertarians don't, but I'm just saying, this is a position I hold that more conservatives.
I think drugs are bad, right? Like I just don't think
Yeah.
the way to solve it, or I don't think it's justified, and I don't think the way to solve it is with states' guns. I think it is a symptom of a sick culture, and I don't think you can use the state to fix culture.
I'm open to alternative, like sort of treatment programs that will get people off of these things. So we may not agree on some things, like on whether it should be allowed, right? But we might agree on say drug courts instead of traditional courts that help people, get over their drugs and be able
Actually,
to avoid
this in the spirit of opposite day, I am
Yeah.
more vehemently against that. I think the process by which we legalize drugs is really, really important. I think that most libertarians are like, well, if we get a law that decriminalizes a drug, that's good. And I think that's actually horrible for society. And the reason I think it's horrible for society is I look at an example like Washington, where they decriminalized basically all drugs. And what was the downstream effects of that? Well, homeless population moved in. That's just because it's legal in Washington and not elsewhere. And homeless population's transient. That's not really Washington's fault, right? But the problem is that they didn't allow companies to step in. It wasn't federally legalized, and they didn't ban it as they should and crack down hardcore for its usage on public property. All of these things are anti-libertarian. And what it did is it allowed degeneracy and drug usage to go, but it didn't give the market any of the legal ability to curtail that problem, right? Because like in a libertine society, like lefty Prague libertarians argue, right? Oh, what is it's a problem. Let people do what they do, and it's like no. In a libertarian
That's also
society,
a Gibbs position.
A landlord ought to be able to say, oh, if you do drugs in my place, you get kicked out today.
Well, yeah,
there's no
absolutely.
30
The landlord
days.
should be
Go
able to
fuck
say that.
yourself, right? And then also, you shouldn't be able to leave your fucking needles in a goddamn children's playground.
Well,
you shouldn't be able to smoke weed on the side of the sidewalk and blow it into people's faces. And more importantly, the drug trade should be a free market enterprise where you're not getting fentanyl, where you can rate your drug dealer on an app so that shows whether or not that person's
This is the Gail
trustworthy.
Bedecker argument, right?
Right, like with prostitution kind of. Yeah.
Well,
with the
hold
Johns.
on. Let me just ask you a question there, because you said something interesting. Well, so yeah, I absolutely agree. If you own a building and someone was doing drugs and you wanted them out that day, then yeah, you should be absolutely allowed to do that, right? On the flip side,
so long as it's in your lease.
Yeah, in your lease, right? Yeah, sure, right. In the contract. However, in the world you're describing, I'm not envisioning any public property. So, like, say there's a sidewalk.
Yes.
Somebody owns that
Correct.
sidewalk, right? So if they deem, yeah, you can smoke marijuana and the sidewalk runs all up and down the neighborhood on the sidewalk, then they'd be able to you'd be able to smoke, whatever.
Yes,
This is, I guess,
yes.
yeah. So this goes
Right,
just
this
where
is
like whatever
so
society
look at gay pride
you want to live
parades,
in,
right?
kind of thing.
This is where my conservatism comes in this regard, right? Like,
yeah, I mean,
I
don't
think gay
disagree with
pride
any of that.
parades, like if in a society that I envision, all of the roads are public. Okay. And so if you live in a neighborhood that does gay pride parades and that's the neighborhood you choose to live in, and like that's the type of shit they do, then you chose that when you moved to that location and you were aware of those circumstances. But the idea that like gay rights and like the ability for gays to do shit is like this wonderful, beautiful thing because freedom, right? So now I live in a city and all of a sudden my city decides that we're going to have leather daddies slinging dick in front of my kids' faces while I'm trying to go to the grocery store. I got a fucking problem with that, but I have no choice in this because I lost the fucking vote. So like this is where my conservatism comes in, and this is again where I say libertarianism is inherently right-wing and discriminatory, which is that the functional societies will engage in will coalesce around functional aspects, and a society that embraces degeneracy and disgustingness and all of this crap out in the middle of the streets is a non-functional society. Go to your fucking Tortuga. We don't want you here. We don't, like, I have kids. I don't want that shit around me. But I don't get that choice because the libertarian says that it's wrong for me to stop the Pride Parade because gay people fought for their fucking rights and all this other shit. Go fuck yourself. I don't want that around me. But now all of a sudden, because we have this public property and we have to fight over what this public property can be used for, I'm in this position where I have to fight against their rights and they're fighting against mine.
Yeah, I totally could get where the public thing argument here. Ical, what do you think about that? Are you a fan? Hold on, are you a fan of leather daddies?
This was a big topic about 2 years ago. And I think the solution, and ultimately, like my understanding is that most parades like found a solution to this, which was they had certain zones that were not going to be considered family friendly. But the main event was not to allow stuff like that. And I've like at least the Pride Parade, like here in Dallas, like followed those rules. Because I've got several friends.
A few Pride Parades, and they are wild.
Yeah, again, it depends on the zone that you're in and the time of day and everything else. But to the degree that they're breaking those norms, like in the main, like supposedly family-friendly like areas, then yeah, I agree. They shouldn't do those things. And if they do, then they're wrong. They should go like where the parade itself is designated zones where things are appropriate in one zone and not another. And I don't have a problem with that being enforced, like society.
Right. So this is bringing that back to the drug argument.
Yeah.
This is kind of what I mean in terms of like this market mechanism, right? Is that, you know, if you were going to do drug legalization properly and the state refuses to give up, you know, its control over schools and playgrounds and roads, et cetera, then it's in the state's interest and in the American public's interest to treat that public property to the best of its ability like a private property owner would. Now, this is an impossibility, obviously, but you can get closest to it, and you can attempt to engage in that until such time that it can be given to us, et cetera, right? But like, I'm not going to be supportive of pro drug legalization if it doesn't also come with severe bans on it in places like playgrounds and public streets and things of that nature. That's kind of what I mean, right? Is that like, I agree with you that there is a problem with drugs, that drugs are bad. And so, but like, I disagree with the state solution of
addictive drugs,
of the violence. Why? No, I would say most drugs are to a certain extent bad. They're just less bad. Like even caffeine and nicotine that I partake in are still drugs. They're still altered states of consciousness. They're still not the healthiest.
A lot of health benefits to caffeine. Well, maybe not caffeine, but to coffee. Coffee has a lot of like omega-3s. There's a probably more benefit than risk.
Maybe. But regardless.
But then again, I'm biased on that one, right? Like I would.
Yeah, I mean, I love my coffee. I know you said you're a coffee nerd too. But you see what I'm saying, right? Like there is the state solution here is bad, but just because I'm a libertarian doesn't mean that I follow this decriminalization route that people do, because I think it's the wrong way to do it.
So
and
there's
I agree
probably
with you that the consequences we see are bad because of it's the wrong way to do it.
Right, and maybe I'm doing it because of consequentialism, and you're doing it out of principle. But there are some policies, it sounds like some of the ones that you just described, where we overlap, right? And maybe we'll disagree on like the degree to which we can make highly addictive drugs permissible. But if you have other ways of regulating, other ways of managing it, other ways of keeping certain segments of the population protected from it, then we can at least agree on those, and we can at least, you know, we can fight over the other stuff.
Would you agree with me, right? If, for example, I am in the state of Virginia. If the state of Virginia put up a bill that said we're going to allow,
you've got a big election coming up.
LSD and mushrooms, right? So psilocybin and LSD, right? These are not drugs that are particularly addictive. It's almost impossible to be addicted to psilocybin, right?
Right.
Because
and it's legal in a couple of states already, right?
Well, for medical usage, like ketamine and psilocybin are utilized in like medical treatments, but that's not the same thing as like being able to just do shrooms. But like we're going to allow that, right? But we're going to heavily ban it on public property. If you get caught with it, it needs to be in a vehicle or in a pocket, not expose the public in any way because you're transporting it to your home. And we're going to allow landlords the ability to evict people instantaneously if they so choose. If they choose to put that in their lease, like, is that something you would support with me? Where people are not allowed to use these altered states of consciousness, but we also gain the right to freedom of association and discrimination.
Yeah, have you seen that? Have you seen that tweet that's been making the rounds about the bartender, and he sees somebody, sits down at the bar, and then immediately says, "No, fuck you, get out of my bar." And somebody asks him why he did that, and he says, "Well, he had a Nazi tattoo on his chest," and he was arguing why he did it. And he said, "Listen, this is what these guys do: is they come in, and if you accept their business, they'll come in again. They'll come in again. They won't cause any trouble. And then one day they bring a friend, and that friend doesn't cause any trouble, and that friend starts to like it. And before long, the bar is full of them, and at that point you can't get rid of them, and that's when they start
bikers.
We do this on we do this on Twitch, right? Like honestly, like I was just talking about how I get white supremacists to pop up my chat, they'll join the Discord.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you have to like root them out, right? Like because like if you don't, then there's this next one that comes around, and he's a little bit more edgy than the last guy,
right?
But not quite. And so suddenly, before you know it, now you got 6, 8, 9, 10 of them, and now you got a goddamn clan meeting going on in your fucking Discord, and that's real bad. But like really though, it's like you have to cultivate a culture. I mean, that's business 101, because eventually, just because something like comes quick and easy doesn't mean that's the best route, right? Like, sure, I could probably tomorrow take over. What was that guy with the fucking gun with the clown makeup? Gypsy something or another. I could probably come get all of his audience tomorrow, like Gypsy Crusader. That's what I mean, tomorrow. Now that he's in jail, but. Yeah, just because you sell out to that, you're selling out your soul to the devil. Right
Doobie openly says that's what happened to his politics thing, right? Is that he just started bringing in everybody, and it got him massive numbers, right? But he doesn't like most of the people that are in. It becomes audience captured. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, so I do.
You have to watch out for it.
Yeah,
with any
you
business.
absolutely should be able to protect your property and your business.
So it's called company culture.
And I think in the long run, it's good for the general population too. The people who are themselves addicted, if it ends up becoming socially impossible to continue your addiction because too many people are turning their backs on you because of it, that could be a good thing. It's a terrible lesson.
I think
other people need to be ready to give them help, right, and treatment, and there needs to be two sides to that coin. But yeah, absolutely.
I think freedom is, we see this with a lot of things, right? When you make something illegal, you almost necessitate, if there is value in this thing, the creation of a black market, right? And I don't have to go into all of the shit about the drug war and gangs. We all get that. We've heard it a million times. But one of the other aspects is that legalization has an opposite effect, right? Which is when it comes into the market, it offers opportunities for aid that didn't exist before. Right?
Yeah.
There are a lot of charity organizations, right? There are a lot of charitable organizations that want to help people that are addicted to drugs, but they don't want to be involved in, fucking gangs coming after them. They don't want to be involved in a bad neighborhood, or they don't want to be involved in certain aspects. And so when you legalize something and you allow people to discriminate against it, that's the key part, is you must allow discrimination. Then what ends up happening is you end up funneling the drug behavior or the degenerate behavior. Let's say like prostitution, for example. We could have the same thing. You create a red light district. You create an area where people can go to do these things, and an area where people can be free from these things. And the incentive structure now is that these two societies are all sprinkled around each other, right? They don't self-select because they're in the shadows. So, you have your crime-ridden, drug-ridden areas mixed with families and, working people, because you've created a black market and they're in the shadows, so they have to be in that area. But when it's liberalized and open, now you create these other societies, and you create the opportunity for people that want to help people get off of drugs to be able to engage in the open and help those people. I want to help drug addicts. I want to stop drug addiction. And I think the worst thing you can do for drug addiction, and I think this has been proven since the Nixon administration, is utilize the state to criminalize and punish these people. That over and over and over again.
Okay. So that part I want to be clear. Okay, I want to be clear on this. That part I 100% agree on. I am for decriminalization. That's not the same as full-on legalization.
Well, I think they're both. I think that's the second worst thing that you can do is decriminalization, where it's still illegal.
There's a gray area. It's still
So society becomes permissive of the drug addiction when you do that, because the state still holds the monopoly on justice and on policing. And so when you liberalize or legalize an aspect of the market, but what you have done is you have essentially, the state has granted permission for the behavior. And so almost as bad as putting all these people in jail is letting these people be drug addicts, but keeping a black market of drugs in the country, keeping it illegal, keeping the gangs involved, not allowing the market to come in and help these people, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, and on top of that, I think that's why when you see drug legalization occur, you see drug rates go up, and they go, well, obviously the state was stopping the drugs from occurring. I think that's untrue. I think if you had a full-blown legalization all across the board, right, what you would actually see is drug rates go down. We've seen this in
those were the initial results in Portugal, right? I understand, like
Portugal. Thank you. Right, exactly. It's because when you have a large scale legalization of the entire process, and then the church and charities and families and companies can get involved and et cetera, I think that helps and heals people and stops the addiction. When you have a black market or a gray market, I think this only makes the problem worse. And I think small levels of decriminalization might even be, I can't tell, but might even be worse than just a blanket ban altogether.
So Gibbs, this sounds in direct contradiction to everything that you've been talking about with regards to going to war, you know, with the cartels and stuff. Like, how do you reconcile these two positions?
Well, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't really see a difference between the cartels and the pharmacy companies, because it comes down to, boils down to like the might makes right. Pharma, if they wanted to, could hire the best, military people they want. They could probably wipe out the cartels. We just turned them loose. In my dream world, right, we could have the Taco Bell wars, right? Like, so I just, when you're saying it like that, I don't think that it really necessarily applies. I don't see a fundamental difference. I don't really look at the world through a morality lens in this kind of thing. I have more of a problem with like restricting people's rights to do stuff. If you decide to live in an order society, right, kind of, whatever, cool, you follow the rules in public. But once you're on your property that you own, like, not that you're renting, I don't really like the idea that somebody can tell me what I can and can't fucking do. Like, I like the idea that I can, if I want to go outside and play five-figure Philly, then sure, let's do it. If I want to go outside,
I don't know what five-finger Philly is, but I'm imagining it's degenerate.
Yeah, it's degenerate. Yeah. If I want to go out there and I want to go do that,
yeah, you don't believe in the nanny state. You don't need the government
I don't believe in the nanny state,
yourself.
right?
Go fuck itself.
Yeah, exactly. If I'm home and I want to be if I want to shoot my toe off, as long as I get the money to pay at the hospital of my own accord and not suck on the teat of my fellow man, yeah, that would be the optimum. So I don't know. I don't really see.
Can I showcase a massive difference between a pharmaceutical company and a cartel?
Maybe. Okay, sure.
So let's assume that we fully legalize the entire distribution of drugs, right? Now, the cartel and then the people and the middlemen and then the people at the trap house, right? So the drug distribution isn't just going to be the cartel, right? It's going to be, person to person to person before it eventually gets to the drug user. And in this process, plenty of people are incentivized, because it's a black market and because there's no company that tests the drugs, et cetera, to cut their drugs or to, give a bad product. I know, and I'm pretty sure and you would agree, that pharmaceutical company has a vested interest in the quality of their product and selling a quality product as it's sold, so to compete with other businesses. And so one big difference that you would see is
it's like how a virus wants to keep its organism alive so it can spread.
Well, I would agree.
You'd see a lot less fentanyl overdoses, because pharmaceutical companies wouldn't just randomly cut their shit. They would give you a quality product, and you'd see less ODs.
Again, it's the
hold on. I actually don't necessarily disagree with this, but the problem is, I think that cartels operate the same way. I don't think that they want to kill their consumers. In fact, when you put out a product that kills too many, that's bad. I think they do have a built-in acceptable loss factor, because the drugs do kill people over time. But by the time the one person's gone, they would hooked like 10 more, because that person's
they're not competing in a free market, right? They're competing in a coerced market.
Right. Well, I agree that the black market's is bad. I would prefer, us all to just be able to do that out in the open. I don't disagree there.
To olive branch here, I think the cartel companies would become more like pharmaceutical companies if it was fully legalized.
No, I think it could go either way. Like, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
I also think that
I agree that like cartels that want to make money off of it would be forced by the market. Because if they have to compete with pharmaceutical companies that have a clean, good product, then they'd eventually be like, well, I guess we got to have a clean, good product.
Sure, I agree with that statement as well, but I also could see the reverse happening where, you get some of these that are out for profit. Like, what was the one we were talking about in Primes last week? I could easily see them hiring a PMC to go take care of a direct competitor in like that kind of situation. There's,
I don't want to get into that because I would consider that anti-libertarian. That's not really what I'm talking about in this domain.
But okay, that's fair. But yeah, I agree that I think that they would. Yeah, I prefer legalization in that regard over the.
Also, my money's on the pharmaceutical company over the cartel. As nasty as cartels are, pharmaceutical companies are nastier.
I also think this is actually a solution we could use in some of the third world. Really, like this is gonna be real crazy. Like, say if we just go Nigeria. Let's talk about Nigeria, right? They have a lot of oil, right? If we gave Exxon the right to do whatever they wanted, do you think that Boko Haram and ISIS over there can handle what Exxon's willing to do to get that fucking oil from that area? And we know those areas. No, I would not want to fuck with whatever Exxon hires.
You want to go down a deep dark hole? Go to your Google after this and Google Africa and Amazon, and just start looking at fucking shit that Amazon has done in certain places.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that they've done some wild shit, but like if they were just turned loose, I mean, it's almost like. I mean, who do you think would win that? Like Boko Haram and ISIS, whatever affiliate, versus whatever Exxon's money got to bear? I don't think it's even close. Like,
I don't think it's even close. Exxon would fucking wipe the floor with them, and I think the reason is mostly because, Boko Haram and stuff like that. Their structures are not. Their structures are just not meritocratic. They're localized groups that are on.
That's
the
big difference. You nailed it.
You know
right
what I
there.
mean? Like
Exxon has a whole department. I had a friend of mine who worked in that department. That is essentially their equivalent of the State Department. That just works for Exxon. Like
and it's probably the best of the State Department people. They probably stole them away with giant wads of cash.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of new ones available too soon.
That being said, it's midnight.
Yeah, perfect. It's a great time to end for me as well.
Yeah,
hey, it was a lot of fun.
A lot of fun. I like this. I think we can have
not
good
as much shouting
conversations.
as we normally do.
Yes,
well, there's not 8 of us or 9 of us.
That's true. Yeah, the numbers.
Yeah, I like it. We might workshop this name some. I don't know how I feel about this name, but we'll come back.
So 2 things. My chat. One person said that they wanted to see you do a political compass test, even if you've done one, because they think you're a left-wing authoritarian. So they want to see.
Sure.
That's what they said. Just do a political compass test. And secondly, I had a name suggestion for my chat, which was instead of Lenscrafters, Lenscrackers.
That's funny. That's a good one.
It's like a play on Lenscrafters, but cracking
I just don't
lenses.
I don't want things. Yeah, except I don't want Twitch to
be. But we need a black person if we're gonna have that name.
Yeah, we're gonna be done. So we can't. I don't know about that one. We'll think about it.
Specific.
I didn't even think about that until you said except, and then my brain went, "Oh yeah, that might be."
Yeah,
that's a banned word on Twitch.
Yeah,
bro, they banned Watch Sarah Live for posting a title saying all men suck. They banned her for the last 6 months. I'm like, damn.
Dude,
that's
Twitch,
a long ban.
Twitch. Look,
to be fair, she had other bans beforehand.
As much as I've had my issues with YouTube, YouTube has figured out very well how to censor, channels that are dissident in their political thought by not boosting them in the algorithm and giving them limited ad revenue. And obviously I don't like fucking censorship, but and that's a form of censorship. But Twitch needs to just fucking learn from YouTube that this weird whack-a-mole thing where they have no concept of what their own fucking TOS is and they just randomly ban people, and then those people are permanently banned.
They don't even
from
bother
doing
to
other
explain
people's
it,
Twitch
right?
streams.
They don't give a
yeah, they don't
reason.
even. It's so stupid. And Twitch and YouTube has figured out when we ban people, we cause a Streisand effect. When we just kind of lower your revenue and don't put you into the algorithm, we don't cause that effect. And that's to a certain degree pernicious and evil, but it's still like, I don't know what you want. I don't match the values of YouTube, so YouTube doesn't boost me. I get it. Like, that's part of the name of the game. Like, Twitch just needs to learn from fucking what YouTube has done in that regard. And YouTube, that and targeted ads. That's the big reason Twitch censorship is so bad. It's because they don't have targeted ads.
Oh yeah, I mean that's probably something they'll work on. I'm sure that's just the nature of the beast. But on that note, any other closing thoughts? Tell people where to find y'all.
I'm Fabian Liberty. You can find me being toxic or posting my shower thoughts on X as Fabian Liberty, and you can find me talking about philosophy, doing reactions and debates on YouTube under Fabian Liberty. I'm not going to restate my positions because we went all over the place, but also if you missed it, this was such a great stream and such a great conversation that you should put it on 1.5 speed and watch it again. So I'm not going to tell you what I said before. It was great. Watch it again.
Yeah, I agree with all that. Icow?
I don't stream, but I'm, the same spelling on any like social media stuff. You'll probably find me.
Fantastic. And I'm Admiral Gibbs. You'll find me everywhere as Admiral Gibbs. Yeah, this was great. Look forward to it next week, hopefully. And we'll figure it out. We'll work on the name, I think. And this is all good. Bye, everybody.
Peace. All right, hold on. We got to move this. Stop virtual camera. Turn this to Logic Capture, then close it, then bring this up. Hey, what are you doing? There we go. All right. This was fun. Not a lot of numbers tonight. But again, this isn't a night I normally stream, and we started way later than normal. But I liked the structure of this. This is a good conversation. I enjoyed that. Admiral Gibbs is a nice, like, refreshing kind of like person, especially when you think antidepressants are bad for your brain. Ooh. Good reminder, I always answer super chats. Okay? Great way to support the channel, as well as memberships for only $3.99. You get access to badges and emotes. I don't gatekeep any content, so I would suggest for most people that if you want to spend your money, you get more bang for your buck out of super chats. But if you just want to support, do that. And then clip the stream, hop into Discord, and post the stream clips in the stream clips section. And when I get time, I'll turn them into YouTube shorts, and that'll really help the channel out without having to spend any money. So, do I think antidepressants are bad for your brain? I think antidepressants are, specifically antidepressants can be a lot of things, but let's key in on SSRIs, right? Selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. Now, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, SSRIs, stop the connection between the dendrites and like the other part, I forget, it's axial, whatever, of the nerve cell, right? It stops the serotonin from going back into the nerve cell and essentially forces a connection into a nerve cell to continue that chain. So it's like having extra serotonin, but you don't actually have extra serotonin. It just forces the serotonin to activate the nerve pathways in the brain. And neurons that wire together fire together. And what this means is every time a neuron fires, it boosts the myelin sheath production within the nerve cell, allowing for stronger pathways towards thoughts that are presumably more positive. Now, so that is a good thing, and that is good for your brain. The problem starts to begin with, well, what pathways are we actually boosting? Is it a targeted thing? And the answer is no, it's not targeted. And so, well, how do we is that something that we can fix? And the answer is yes, that is something that we can fix. Okay? The problem with research on SSRIs is that it takes everyone that's doing SSRIs and puts them in a category. And then it potentially breaks down the categories by like mental health disorders, right? So persistent depressive disorder, or, post-traumatic stress disorder or generalized anxiety disorder, like these, these forms of neurotic thoughts, etc. Now, the problem is the diagnosis valid? Well, you can't. OCD is one. I mean, you're going to see it with bipolar disorder. You're going to see it with bipolar depressive disorder. Like, there's a bunch of them, right? The problem is number one, is this an appropriate? Is everyone in this category diagnosed appropriately? The answer is obviously no. So we know some cohort of this population is. You should be on Raging Tomato and debate. I've reached out to her. Drug legalization, I was actually reached out to her on that topic. She didn't want to invite me for it because she thought that that I was like too much on one side of the fence or the other, and that I didn't have like an opinion that could fit into that panel. Anson Knowles. Unfortunately, sometimes people value you're either all the way on one way or you're all the way on the other, and they want a blood sports kind of thing. But I also told her like I'd be willing to do more on panels that I'm like more one side or the other side on. But I did reach out to Raging Tomato. I have talked to her, and then she didn't invite me because I don't think she quite understood my position. I tried to explain it to her, and she was like, "So you're for federal legalization, but not local legalization, I guess? All right, well, I guess you're too, pro drug legalization for this panel." It's whatever. It's hard to describe the nuance of like ANCAP legal theory over DMs to people that haven't really been exposed to it. I don't blame her. And I also don't blame when you're making an entertainment show for prioritizing the blood sports. But getting back to the antidepressants question. So the problem is we know some cohort of people are improperly diagnosed. Hey, welcome, member old Joe. Some of that cohort is improperly diagnosed. And then remember how I said that there is like this neurons that wire together, fire together. Well, how do neurons fire together? How do they wire together? Well, part of that is the SSRI encourages myelin sheath production in brain pathways that we want by increasing brain activity, based off of serotonin. But your thoughts also choose your brain pathways, right? Like when I think a certain thought. So when we do, let's say, cognitive behavioral therapy, right? Which is kind of the gold standard in therapy. Not because it's the best per se, in the sense that it's like always works the best, but it works well for high IQ people and normal IQ people. And more importantly, it trains you, and any monkey can kind of do it. Like it train like it's not a difficult therapy to do, unlike psychoanalytics or something where there's going to be a lot of bad people that are bad at doing it. And that's the thing, is that if you are in extensive therapy with a good therapist, psychotherapist, especially cognitive behavioral therapy, in conjunction with the antidepressants, then you're training your brain to rethink things, to not get in thinking traps, to not have depressive thoughts and depressive thinking. And then the SSRI helps move in that direction. And that's good, right? But if you're just going to your general practitioner and being like, "Oh, I have anxiety and like I get nervous, etc.," and then you're given an SSRI, well, then you're not actually incentivized or motivating your brain to think better thoughts. You're just taking a drug that mutes your emotions, which presumably mutes the bad thoughts, mutes sexual arousal, changes your hormone production, and changes the way your brain thinks on things, but without the incentive structure of a psychotherapist that's guiding you towards healthier thoughts. So I think SSRIs are actually a really good and useful tool. And what I think is that the research is really not focused in on what the problem with SSRIs are. And the problem is overdiagnosis, overprescription, and most importantly, the problem is utilizing SSRIs without well-trained, extensive, effective therapy, evidence-based therapy, to move, to rethink your thoughts, get out of those thinking traps, get out of those things, and then utilizing the SSRI with that psychotherapy to think, as a tool to help you think those better thoughts and avoid those bad thoughts. And then hopefully, depending on your condition, obviously it depends on what your psychiatrist and your psychotherapist believes, but hopefully maybe even one day getting off of those SSRIs because they have, hormonal things and other side effects. But you see research that shows SSRI is not working that well, therapy's not working that well, and you see all these problems. But it's not the SSRI's fault. It's the overprescription, the lack of evidence-based, effective psychotherapy. The growth of all these women going to all these different therapists and shit, and the growth of feminist theory, in psychotherapy, and talk therapy that isn't connected to an end goal, right? So you see this all the time, you see it on dating apps and shit, right? Where they're are you in therapy? It's dude, therapy is not supposed to be a lifelong fucking thing. That's really bad for you. That causes, one of the first things you learn as a psychotherapist about, neurotic, disorders, is rumination, right? Thinking the bad thoughts constantly, again, neurons that wire together, fire together. And so it's you can't just have someone constantly in therapy, constantly talking, especially when that therapy is talk therapy, where they're just bringing up all of your traumatic shit and then constantly trying to work through it by describing it. You're causing there is some immediate catharsis to letting that out, but there is also a negative aspect to that. And this is why I like things like cognitive behavioral therapy, even though, or, REBT, rational emotive behavioral therapy, which is kind of the same thing. I think it is, or even mindfulness-based cognitive therapy, right? All of these kind of things are focused on look, we're going to do 20 sessions. We're going to determine a goal after we get a diagnosis in session 2 or 3. Once we identify a problem and determine a goal, then we're going to train you on, ways of thinking, ways of, recognizing the antecedents to your behavior, ways of finding these thinking traps and what these bad thoughts are. And then once you're trained on it, I want you to go out in the world with the skills that I've given you so that you can continuously work on yourself and thinking better thoughts. And then SSRIs can be kind of something to keep you from fucking killing yourself, right? Or to help modulate behavior and to help reinforce that therapy. That's my opinion. I'm not a licensed psychotherapist. I do have a lot of I like radical acceptance theory. Radical acceptance theory is one of those ones where it's the theory is good, the therapist really matters. That's kind of, you know what I mean? That's kind of why I'm a big fan of cognitive behavioral therapy, not because I think CBT or REBT or mindfulness-based cognitive therapy, especially with trauma disorders, or trauma-informed mindfulness-based cognitive therapy, those things for that specific thing. But radical acceptance theory is great with and narrative therapy and radical acceptance therapy both are great with disorders like eating disorders, for example, right? They all have their places where they're more effective. But I generally suggest cognitive behavioral therapy to people without knowing much about it because it's hard to fuck up. That's kind of how I feel about it, right? There's does it work? And then there is okay, in the real world, does it work, right? So for example, birth control is 99 or 97% effective, but in the real world, it's 88% effective. And the reason it's only 88% effective is women forget to take the pill. Sometimes they take medication that counteracts it. Sometimes there's an unrelated or an unknown hormone issue, etc. And so the real world effectiveness is 88%, despite the drug being 97 to 99% effective. And so that's kind of in the real world, there's a lot of bad therapists that don't know what they're doing or haven't kept up with their education or are, have their own problems, or they're like, they're wounded healers or whatever. And sometimes they bring in their own trauma into the relationship, etc. Like not every therapist is good. And like, whereas cognitive behavioral therapy is very structured. I mean, the guy and his daughter that like kind of like pioneered it, were super, super, super concerned with evidence-based, very structured kind of like form of therapy. And like, that's why it's good. It's good because like you're not, because it's just super structured. What is cognitive behavioral therapy in your words? Cognitive behavioral therapy is a form of therapy where a psychotherapist is training you on skills to recognize your behavior and the logical contradictions between your stated goals and your behavior both leading up to and during your behavior in the moment, and then and how that isn't related to your stated goals or your desired outcomes. I guess that would be like 1,000-foot like bird's eye view. I was about to go to bed, and then like one super chat got me going off. That requires complete honesty with the therapist. Yes and no. Nobody's completely honest with their therapist. And like, patients lie, clients lie. Part of your job as a therapist is to recognize that they lie and to try and suss out. But therapy is just another tool, you know what I mean? Like, so it's like, if you're not doing it. Fabian, are you a therapist? No, I went to grad school to be a counselor, but I didn't do the internship because like COVID happened and I was going through a divorce. So like I didn't have the money or the ability to like continue into the internship, but like I got all of the education. And of course, as a streamer and a layman, like I've done a lot more research outside of what I did in grad school. Radical acceptance theory does not. It's a lesson. You make what you want of it. I guess that's why I like it. Yeah, also, no two people are the same. You know what I mean? Like, obviously, some forms of therapy work better for some people than others. Like that's kind of like what, like, like I remember when I was doing grad school, like it was like, I had to write a paper with like, like identifying different people from like, and their issues and being like, okay, what form of therapy might be best for this person? And like different people are going to be, different people and different disorders are going to be affected differently by different forms of therapy. Like I said, narrative therapy and radical acceptance therapy tend to show their best results in like eating disorders and in like inpatient facilities. Now, does that mean cognitive behavioral therapy won't work for an eating disorder? Obviously not. But the evidence seems to suggest that other forms of therapy tend to be more effective. Found the most productive work was when I challenged a client, didn't accept an obvious untruth. Did you ever try Gestalt? Dude, Gestalt to me is I feel like if I was a practicing therapist, I would be heavily into Gestalt. Like maybe it's because like my debate bro nature, my antagonistic behavior, that I'd be talking shit on clients, being like, no, that's not what happened. Like you told me earlier that this, like, that's not right. Come on, be honest with yourself. You know what I mean? But like I thought that Gestalt's interesting, but like Gestalt again is like one of those things that's like they're like, oh well, it's not that effective. It's like, well, is it not that effective, or is it that like it requires skill and a good therapist to be able to do that effectively? You know what I mean? Like I think like it's the same thing with like psychoanalysis. Psychoanalysis probably being like the worst culprit here. right? But there are a lot of bad psychoanalysis therapists that just like interpret, crazy shit from your fucking dreams and then be like, see, and this is why you need to leave your boyfriend. Like, and bring in their own trauma and it's horrible. Psychoanalysis has been shown over and over again to be like one of the worst forms. But is it bad, or is it just that like most people shouldn't be doing it and most therapists aren't good at it? Yeah, I mean, like there are a lot of idiots that are psychotherapists, old Joe, and like that's why I tell people I'm like cognitive behavioral therapy. Because like if you get a bad therapist that's like a psychoanalyst or like a fucking Gestalt therapist or something, like they might literally make your problem worse. But like any 25-year-old, pretty girl that got the job over all the other guys because she's a girl and it's a girl private practice and you know what I mean, they love the feminine energy and like has a fucking IQ of 105 can fucking do cognitive behavioral therapy. Like it's like doing fucking homework with worksheets. Like it's hard to fuck up. Like that's, you know what I mean? Like one of your buddies was beaten up by a client in a Gestalt session. I could see that. That's funny. But listen, I'll be back tomorrow. I'm going to react to some posts and articles about the situation in Gaza. And if I can find a good resource, if you find it, post it to me in Discord. What I want to go through is I want to go through all of Donald Trump's executive orders thus far. And just like give a libertarian and like personal reaction to each kind of one of these executive orders to the best of my ability tomorrow. Like just because like so much has happened and I feel like so much has gotten lost in the weeds, and I just kind of want to do like what has he done EO wise thus far, what's the good and the bad and the ugly, and maybe I'll put up on stream like a tally chart of like, we'll look at it, we'll react to it, and we'll like be like, is this good, is this bad, is this neutral, and then like we can like give a definitive, like super biased and weighted analysis of whether or not his executive orders have been overall good or bad from like an ANCAP perspective tomorrow. I feel like that should be fun. And also I just feel like I said, so much has been like, so many things have happened in his first week as president that like, I feel like there's shit that's just gone through the cracks. Like I know I'm missing. And like I need to go over to like recognize what's going on. So I'm sure you guys are missing it. Should be fun. Join the Discord if you want the go live notifications. Tonight was a late night, and this is probably what Tuesday nights are going to look like, starting at like 9:30, 9 o'clock at night. But normally we start at 6 p.m., 7 p.m., somewhere in that time frame, Eastern Standard Time. Trump needs to hug his inner child. Just out in EO lists in the Discord. Yeah, like I want to find one that like shows them all and then like gives like a quick link to the actual document as opposed to like a summary of it, so that I'm not like copying and pasting and looking for like the full EO on each one. Like hopefully like I can quickly go back and forth or something, but we'll figure it out. I'll do that prep tomorrow. For now, I got to hop off of here, get a little bite to eat and wind down because it's 12:30 at night. All right, guys. I will see you tomorrow, hopefully. Follow me on X. Follow me, join the Discord. Consider, channel membership for only $3.99. Or super chats. All super chats get answered, always. Hopefully the channel will grow big enough to one day make the super chat answering thing like a minimum dollar amount. Because I'm just getting so many of them, that'd be dope. But I appreciate you guys. I appreciate your support. And I'll see you tomorrow. And let me know in the Discord or whatever, like what you guys thought about tonight and like the structure of tonight. I thought it was fun. I think it could be a fun weekly thing. Peace.